right, time being 6 o'clock, I'll go ahead and bring this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remind everybody, if you have a cell phone, please turn it on vibrate or turn it off. Roll call.
Swenson.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Los. Kettering.
Here.
Fleming.
Here. I'd like to take a moment and welcome Commissioner Kettering back. We're all praying for you, and I'm glad you had a good recovery. So, any of the commissioners have a reason to abstain for a financial or non-financial conflict of interest? We'll start over here. Gary?
I have none.
No. No.
No. All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections at this time?
So moved.
Entertain a motion. Gary, a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Actually,
Do you have something?
are we striking that? Is that on here?
Let's
Okay.
wait till we get there.
Okay.
All right, I had a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, approval of the minutes from August 16th. We'll just start with the August 16th minutes. Is there any, for the special budget meeting, any additions or corrections to those minutes? Entertain a motion.
I'd move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, next item, August 20th minutes. I did have one correction on the August 20th minutes on action 19371C. It's right at the beginning. It said it was a 4-to-1 vote. I think it would have been 3-0 because there was only 3 commissioners here. So that was the one correction that I would have. Are there any other corrections to the August 20th minutes? Entertain a motion.
Move approval with amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the, next minutes, the August 23rd special meeting. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 6, public comment. Is there any public comment?
There was a name on the one below it, so.
That's for later.
One public comment from Kathy Weiss. Come on up, state your name, and I'll give you 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kathy Weiss, and this is in regards to the YAPG funding. On February 7th of 2017, the previous county commissioners voted to increase their pledge to YAPG from $40,000 to $50,000 a year. On that night, only 3 commissioners were present: Don Kettering, Todd Woods, and Deb Bodenstedt. All 3 voted in favor of the increase, and the measure was passed. The problem is, Don Kettering, as an investor in YAPG, should have abstained from voting, just as he abstained from voting on GOED matters involving YAPG. In his GOED dealings, he considered his involvement with YAPG to be a conflict of interest. why wouldn't it also be a conflict of interest in this case? If Don Kettering had abstained, the commission could not have voted at all. So my question is, was this a legal vote? And if it wasn't a legal vote, is a $10,000 increase to YAPG valid? And is a renewal of the original $40,000 pledge even valid? I think this matter needs to be settled before the YAPG appropriation is finalized.
Thank you.
And here's the minutes.
Thank you. Anyone else care to make a public comment? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Next item on the agenda, item number 7, approve the 2020 annual budget. I suppose we open it up for comment on the budget. Anybody care to make a comment on the 2020 annual budget? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the 2020 annual budget, bring it back to the commission. Don, are you up to speed on what we've done with the budget?
I believe so.
Okay.
The adjustments that we
Yes,
talked.
yes. I would just like to say we got a tremendous amount of public input on the budget, which I think is a good thing. This is the first year where we had our budget recorded. I'm sure all of you have reviewed this 7+ hours of fascinating budget discussions. It was a good thing. I got a lot of emails and phone calls on the budget, and although we weren't able to fund everything as much as we wanted, I think it's fairly close. So, is there any other comments any of the commissioners would like to make on the 2020 budget? Did you have something, Gary? Go ahead.
You know, from the very beginning, I said that the senior citizens, the airport, and the library shouldn't have been on the chopping block. But the thing I want to bring up is something that I read about Dr. Ben Carson, the HUD director. You know, he came from a poor family, fatherless, and his mother made him read 2 books a week. And she forced him to read those 2 books every week. And long story short, he became a brain surgeon. That's how important the library is for a poor kid. And I know from growing up, not being a rich kid, I know how important the library is. So, and the senior citizens, the museum, and the airport, they're all important. Thank you.
Thanks. Don, do you have anything you'd like to say on the budget? Joe, do you have anything you'd like to say on the budget?
Yeah, I do. Regarding historical sites, our funding for that. I know we've been back and forth and back and forth. I've reached out to some members of the board and people involved with the funding there, specifically to the Mead project, and trying to get a grasp on where that funding has come from historically, where it's going. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. Patty maybe has them closer, but I think historically we as a county pledged like $34,000 up until the Mead building project started. And at that point we went to, was it 80,000, I believe, give or take?
For those 2 years.
For 2 years, and then that's when this, when the levy was passed. And I guess my understanding was that levy was to guarantee funding for that project. That being said, we've continued to fund the Historic Society or the Mead project, and I do think it's a good project for the community. And one thing I wanted to kind of float over with the others is that we maintain or close to maintain what their request was this year. It would allow them, I think it's palatable to them that we would maintain it this year with the understanding that next year it would be drastically cut, and give them opportunity opportunity to prepare their budget and get funding and do some fundraising on their own. So I wanted to see what people's thoughts were. I think we were at 24 down to 12, and now we're back to 18, I think.
Yep.
I don't know if we're at 20 or back to 24, but I wanted to see what people thought of that.
Well, I think we kind of had agreed on we were at 15, and I think were we at 12, and
We were
went
at
to
12, I
18.
think, at one time.
So is it, yeah,
So I'm open, that's just the conversations I had with
Sure.
them, and that was brought up, and I
Sure.
said I certainly would discuss that. So if we're stay at 18, we stay at 18, but
okay. Anything else? Any more discussion on the budget? Would entertain a motion on the 2020 budget.
move approval of the budget.
Have a
Did
mo-
you want, no change
With no changes.
with the ones you guys have decided?
Yeah, that'd be the Historical Society. I guess the important ones was be the Historical Society at 18, the library at 15, the airport at 10, YPG at 25,000. Are we all in the same boat on
The
that?
center at 47?
And the center, yeah, at 47, fully funding the Senior Citizen Center. So, everybody on the same page? All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Healy,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Swenson,
No.
Clemish.
Yes, motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 8, claims. I see we have our court costs again are up there. What do we have? $17,468.93 for court fees last month. And we also have $12,190 for juvenile detention on page 33. Those are costs we don't have a lot of control over. Any other discussion on the claims? Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, August payroll.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, building entry agreement for E911 fiber cable. Mr. Lou and, is it Winox? Wixon. Welcome. Come on up. State your names for the record and tell us about your project.
Andrew Wixon, CenturyLink engineer.
Zach Sankey, CenturyLink Construction Project Administrator.
So we're looking for a building entry agreement at 410 Walnut Street for the 911 project. CenturyLink has recently won a contract with the state to provide all the PSAPs with 911 service. We're going to do all the networking, and the one here in Yankton needs fiber installation in it. So we need your permission to provide a new entry into the building and to maintain our equipment inside the building. I believe I provided you with a pretty standard building entry agreement. If you have any questions about it.
So how long is that, or do you expect to be?
The construction should only take a few days. The agreement is for 10 years.
Any other questions, Joe? Don, Gary, got any questions? Any questions from the audience? back to the board.
Move approval of the entrance agreement.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 10, right-of-way for South Dakota Network LLC. Mr. Savacek.
It's just a right-of-way application for South Dakota Network. They're going to be plowing in a new line into Mission Hill, going south towards Highway 50. Then they'll jog over, it's roughly about half a mile to the east, then south into Gayville Township. I made sure they had permission from Gayville Township also, so.
Okay. There was no issues with the township?
No, it
Was on
was,
this? Okay.
they were good with it.
And this is, what is this for? Is this for fiber optic
Fiber.
cable? Okay. Does that bring in just some internet service or just repairing what's there? Are you aware of that?
It almost sounded like they're replacing, because there's existing boxes there, it sounded like,
Okay.
that they're going into.
Okay.
96 count of fiber optics, so.
Okay. Any questions from anyone on the board for Mr. Sedlacek?
Move approval.
Does anyone from the audience have a question? All right, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, next item, right away for Dale. What is it, Savinka? How do I say that?
I don't know.
Is he here? What?
Svachina.
Savicina. Are you here, sir? Oh, he's not? All right. Go ahead, Mike.
He's doing a right-of-way application. He is, with this year's flooding event, he wants to run a drain. It's pretty much a drain tile out to the township ditch for his sump pump for his house. His house faces east, so he'll be running it to the west ditch there, and I can't foresee it being much of an issue. There's no other connections. I asked if he's
Right, he's not
added-
draining an 80 or something.
Right. Which wouldn't be a good idea if that backed up into the house, so.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it.
Any questions from any other commissioners?
I think he's,
Does it set a precedence for others?
Yes, there are other places out there that I've noticed, sump pump hose in the ditch, which, yeah.
Kind of a common sense thing though, isn't it?
Well, you don't want to put it 10 feet away from the house either.
my understanding is and maybe Brian, you were at the meeting probably, Sherry was gone, is gone, but my understanding is he's got this tile existing around his house to a sump pump. He's just pumping it out across the yard already. But
So-
I'd like to just get it away.
Yeah, he's recirculating it right now is the way it sounds.
We took it before the drainage board, or drainage commission. They heard it, basically decided. So they said, go ahead, if they have a problem doing it.
Just a minute, Brian. People watching at home on TV, they keep complaining to me that they can't hear you or state's attorney, so thank you.
This went before the drainage board. We discussed it at length. He is taking his drain tile and making a 4-inch tile out to the ditch. The drainage commission looked at it and decided that they did not see a problem with this situation, and any other future ones we would look at on a case-by-case basis. But they blessed this one to move ahead, considering it went to the ditch. drain to the north and hits a blue line, eighth of a mile, I think, to the north, and drains from there.
You don't see any issues with this one either?
I did not, nor did, more importantly, the Drainage Commission did not see any problems.
Any other questions from the commission? Any questions from the audience on this one? All right, back. If there's no more questions,
I'll move
entertain.
approval of the right of way. Gale. Slovakia.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion pass.
And I guess I have to add, this last spring, I applied for a grant for the bike path. It's 80/20. State will pay 80, we'll pay 20%. It'll go, it's for overlaying the bike path from the bottom of Chalkstone Hill all the way to the fish hatchery. The state granted us $129,618 for it, so.
Is there a cost share involved in that? Or is that
80/20.
80/20, okay.
So that's a good thing. We'll keep our eye out for grants for stuff like that, you know, just, if we want stuff like that, we gotta have grants pay for it, you know.
Yep. That was Representative Schwalk at Pier is the one who informed me about that program, and then I passed that on to you. I'm glad that we were able to get that funding, so
Yep.
thank you for your work on that. I have got some feedback that portion of the trail is not in great shape.
Right.
It's something that's needed. It's important to, you know, get from town out to the state path, so it is important, so.
And Eric from District 3 should get a pat on the back too for that. He did a lot of the paperwork for it, so.
Appreciate it.
Is-
Did you have something? Go
Is
ahead.
there any way he could read that into the minutes, that letter that he got from the governor?
Yeah, if you want, did you have something, Brian?
Applicants we just discussed just arrived, we're ahead of schedule. So it's seen as
Okay. I think we already passed that one. Yeah, do you want to go ahead and read that into the minutes quick? So everyone knows.
Dear Mike, I am pleased to inform you that Recreational Trails Program funding in the amount of $129,618 has been approved for Yankton County Highway 52 Trail Improvements Project. This project will undoubtedly provide hours of quality outdoor recreation for area residents and visitors of Yankton County, and I commend you for your efforts. In the coming days, a project agreement will be developed between Yankton County and the Department of Game, Fish, and Parks. No expense related to the project may be incurred until the project agreement is executed and all clearances are in place. Your contact in the Department of Game, Fish, and Parks is Randy Kittle. If you got any questions, 773-5490. Again, I want to congratulate you and your staff for making our state a better place in which to live, work, and play. Sincerely, Christy Nome.
Mike, would you, for the record, so everybody heard it, the dollar amount again?
$129,618. All right.
All right, appreciate your hard work on that, so. Do you want to give us an update while you're up here on, is it?
Fleegs Bridge.
Bridge, yeah.
We had bridge inspection, annual bridge inspection done on Fleegs Bridge. Every year that one is inspected due to the scouring and stuff. They did find a crack in one of the beams, where the beams adjoin each other. It wasn't an alarming deal, I guess. They went back and they did their calculations and everything gets to stay, the load limits, load ratings are all the same. They came down here with the snooper truck, had a Sioux Falls Construction come down here. They went down there and drilled both ends of the crack, and it'll just be on monitor now, you know. As, while they were down here with the snooper truck, they checked all 4 Jim River bridges for anything alarming, mainly the splice welds, so, and everything else looked good. That was the only one that had an issue.
Or was a crack middle, east, west?
Well, you have, if I remember right, there's 6 stringers, 6 beams underneath. There was a second one from the north. There's, where the 2 beams join each other, there's a backing plate that they weld on before they do the splice weld. Well, there just was a poor spot in the weld. So.
Did it appear like that had been broken for some time, or is it a new?
No, they inspected it last year, and they said they have not, as of last year, there was nothing, you know.
Okay.
So.
And that's already been repaired then?
Yes, the repair is done.
Did they have to cut a hole and put something on the top as well, or were they able to
No,
weld on
we
3 sides?
use a snooper truck, the catwalk that goes underneath.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think that's a success story on finding problems and issues with these bridges early by spending a little bit on inspections. We found that before it had cracked other beams. I mean, less than a year ago, Johnson Bridge was closed down because there weren't, you know, inspections going on. So I think this is a success story on, you know, prolonging the life of these bridges and keeping our taxes low by regular inspections. And how long was that bridge closed? Was it even closed down?
No, it was never closed. It was just down to 1 lane.
Okay. So we were able to keep it open, keep commerce flowing,
Right.
get it repaired, and with
Yeah,
no negative effects, so.
Us at the highway department, we just had to do traffic control with road signs and stuff, so.
Nothing
great.
to be alarmed about as
No-
far as the failure though.
Right, because I was, kind of worried me right away, and while they called their main office, and they started
Yeah.
doing some digging on it, and they were down there, they took pictures of the measurements with the ruler next to the crack and everything else, so.
How far had that, was it fairly small and it cracked all the way through, or what?
It was about 11 inches, just shy of 11.
How big
And
is
your
the beam?
beams are 30, I
Oh,
want to
okay,
say.
so, okay. Caught it before it cracked through. That's a good
Yep.
thing, so.
Mike, could you just give us a little update on where you're at on the gravel county roads, or how close you are to being caught up?
We're pretty much back to normal in Central Township, Odessa, 93, 55, 56, we still have a few spots to do. And then a few, we started into Lesterville last week, so hopefully here within the next couple weeks, we'll be getting close. Just talked to the contractor with the grinding of the roads. They are planning in second week in October, so I'm gonna give us 3 weeks to get the townships done, and then we'll start graveling on them asphalt roads. We also have started working on, we got the Viberg Road open, the North County line. We got them 3 culverts installed, and the road's open back up as of last week. The Midway Road, there's 2 84-inch culverts on that road, right off of 81. Them culverts will be showing up next week, so I'm figuring that'll be a darn near a whole week's. They're 84-inch by 70 foot, and it's a big hole to dig, so. Other than that, I guess for culverts, other than them 2 big ones, we probably have close to 15 to do yet. And this month, I think we'll be totally done with culverts. And asphalt patching, we still have south of Gayville to do a little bit, and then Riverside Acres, there's 3 spots I think we need a patch. So it's coming around.
And the gravel piles are holding out yet?
So far, we still have gravel.
Have we getting ready to bid?
Right.
Yes, I'm working on writing that up I've been working on the 5-year plan and trying to get the bid written up, so.
Thank you.
There's been a lot of stuff going on lately.
And FEMA should be, when is your meeting with FEMA?
Tomorrow morning, I have another phone call with FEMA. And we'll set a date on when they will be here in person to start the paperwork on that. If you go on to that, on the District 3 damage site that we have, you can see all the red dots and the green dots. The green dots are repaired and the red dots still need repairs. So there's seeing way more green than red. That's what I like to see.
That's good, right?
Thank you, guys. They're working hard.
Yeah.
Will do.
Appreciate it. Any other questions for Mr. Slotchek? Well, thank you for all your hard work. We really do appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
All right, next item on the agenda, item number 11, transfer request from Mayor Sherry Hoffman. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am here to request a property transfer that is now owned by the county. Its address is 211 2nd Street in Utica. It was taken for back taxes, and the town of Utica would like me to ask for it back. This would be the third and final property we would ask transferred back to the town of Utica so we can begin our rebuilding and cleaning of the land and getting that ready for a resale. We are currently working on the bulldoze, build and beautify grant. And we have, we wanted to do cleaning of the culverts and re-straightening those out. Some of them were bad. We wanted to get all the infrastructure stuff kind of done first while we were working towards this piece of clearing lands and getting them ready for new homes. So we are done with that. We are done with our streets and gravel as well. So we are ready to ask for the third piece of property back.
This one's a fixer-upper, you know that, right?
Do you want to know the story behind it?
Yeah, tell us the story. I know, but tell the
I know it.
audience
So
the
this
story.
house, the picture that I provided is actually, those windows are facing to the north. Right in front of it is my street, which is, I'm going to say late 2016 or maybe 17. I forget the dates exactly. We noticed a sinkhole in the middle of the street. So obviously we're going to start to repair that. Brought the construction crew out. They traced the leak back to that house. That basement or that water main had broken and had been broken for several years. So I wouldn't go into that house without either scuba gear or a hazmat suit. And it has not been opened since. So if someone can fix it, great, but it's going to take a lot to remediate the mold, is my guess.
Have you had any success talking with any contractors on removing those two properties that you currently have?
We are still working towards that. We've got a couple grants. Like I said, the bulldoze, build and beautify, which I get the names mixed up, sorry.
Sure.
Working towards that. And then we have some discussion with some contractors. It has been especially difficult for us just because we had to redo 2nd Street, which we were prepared for, obviously. Mm-hmm. It took us probably a year and a half to get that in line. It was very expensive. And then, of course, the spring flooding just compounded that. So now we are at a point where it's like, well, we can do it. However, it's a painful process. It will not get done this year. It may make next year, possibly.
Yes, I don't have a problem, giving this property away, but I think we need to put some type of condition on it where we don't want it to sit like this for 10 years.
I absolutely agree.
And, you have two properties already that need to be tore down. So I don't know how the board feels, but I'm perfectly fine getting this off our books and giving it to Utica, but some sort of condition where it needs to be, leveled in the next 2-3 years and, something built back on it. And we would be willing to do what we can to help you with that. But,
And I think that's
yeah.
reasonable.
The ultimate goal really is to have maybe something like a governor's home or a new home in there and bring a new family into the
I'm hoping at
town
least
of
3
Utica.
families.
So, I think that would be great, so.
There are other pieces of property that we have as
Sure.
well that we're probably not in the greatest position. You know, once it's underneath our water tower, and that might be a hazard. So that
Yeah.
piece I might take off the table. But those
Sure.
other 3 for sure, we want those cleaned and want people to live there.
I know from National Street and working with Habitat for Humanity, it's amazing when you see one house get recited, and then the next neighbor to him redoes his house, and before you know it, the whole street looks
Right.
so much better. And I think
Exactly.
that's something that could happen
Yeah,
here.
we have to help each other be successful, so.
Don, did you have
Yeah,
something?
did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Sherry, did Matt get in contact with you?
He is not yet, no.
Okay, he's supposed to.
Okay.
I've talked to him, told him about your interest, and so if you haven't heard from him, give me another call.
I sure will. I appreciate that. We did also speak with Habitat for Humanity, just so you know, we're exploring that avenue as well. So.
Do you have anything, Joe, Gary, on this? Anyone from the audience care to speak on this topic?
Anybody want to give the town a donation? Going once? No, sorry.
All right, I'll bring it back
Couldn't
to the
hurt.
board. I guess I'd like to see some sort of condition placed onto this where I'm sure there's all the intent of it getting torn down and being a vacant lot. Because really, in a situation like this where you have this house on, it's
It is a
cost
corner lot.
prohibitive because you're better off building on a lot that's prepared rather than going through the expense. And I know you and I have talked about that, and that's why some of these haven't been torn down for 20 years.
Exactly,
so-
yes. Some of them have been abandoned for
Sure.
10 to 15 years, and that needs just to be taken care
What are
of.
you thinking, like a 5-year period or something?
I'd like to see it sooner than that, if possible. How is that Bulldoze Build Beautify program? That's a couple-year program, is it
It is,
not?
actually, they, even if we heard this year, obviously, they couldn't do anything with it until next year.
Okay.
And so then it becomes dependent upon weather and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But we have not heard yay or nay on that yet.
And I think that program from when, just so everybody knows, I met with Mayor Hoffman at District 3, and we did discuss, and Bulldoze Build Beautify, it's kind of for bigger communities sometimes
It is.
with, 10, 15 homes, and this one with 3 homes, it's going to be tough to make that happen. And
I did say 3 homes too, so don't make me a liar on that one. Just saying.
2.5, right?
Hey. Yeah, if the board wants to put something in place as a timeline and hold our
Yeah.
feet to the fire, I have no issue with that.
What do you think would be a reasonable timeline?
I would say, I'm just going to go out on a limb and maybe say 3 years. I don't know, barring anything that happens with FEMA, if they
Okay.
pay everything great and the world is good and I can afford to do it sooner, obviously.
3 years before the lot is clear, or 3 years?
I'm going to say 3 years before the lot is clear. Obviously, their service is already there. This would just be simply a knockdown. I don't think it's in a position to be burned down, just because it sits on a quarter lot, and that is a heavily treed section. And those trees, the ones that we haven't had to take down because of damage, are in pretty good shape. And it also sits next to a single white home, and I would
Okay.
be leery about its fire heat and that sort of thing if it does some damage.
Sure,
But
yeah.
we would obviously refer to the fire department for that. But the basement is not finished. It is actually just a dirt, maybe like a root cellar, something that size, very small.
Okay.
But yeah, I would have no issue with having it cleared in 3 years, obviously with the hope of it being sooner.
Could we do 2 years, kind of put the pressure on Utica? Utica, that's my hometown. I want to see
I
it. I want to see
know.
it thrive, so.
All right, so you'll come to next week with an axe and start work on it.
Yes,
It'd be great.
yes, we can.
All right, I'll concede to 2.5 years. I'm kidding.
I would like to see, I guess I'd like to see something a little sooner
End
than
of
3 years.
2021. That gives me an extra 4 months. Don't tell him.
What does the rest of the board think?
I'm okay with that.
You know, I'm okay with that. I guess, you know, if it's not cleared, then what? It comes back to the county, or, I mean, that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's-
I
you have
just,
to have that,
I
too.
just, what I don't want to see happen is these are like this 6 years from now and we're not moving forward on these is, you know, we'll give you guys the opportunity and, you know, this is a big expense for the city of Utica to tear some of these down. And if they're not able to financially do that, then I think we'd be better off either auctioning this off or giving it away to somebody who's gonna do something with it. I will give you a first crack, I'd say 2 years. And if you can't get it done in 2 years, it comes back to us, we can auction it or sell it or even give it away to somebody who's willing to do that. Because ultimately, we want a new home here and a family moving in and making Utica thrive.
I would like the caveat that if we find some reason, catastrophic reason we can't do it, we would come back and ask for an extension.
Yeah, that's
But yeah, we want to be the
That's
ones to
reasonable.
set the bar to say, we're picking up our abandoned things, cleaning them up, and getting ready to add new homes or whatever to the tax roll, because that's what we want. That's where we're getting our money as well.
Yep.
I can't turn that away,
Yep.
so.
Great. So, all right, somebody want to make a motion?
End of 2021.
I thought 2 years. Oh, yeah, all right, you win. End of 2021?
All right, I'll take it.
Somebody want to make a motion on that? Are we all in
So
agreement?
moved.
Second.
I think we should probably have,
You should have a roll call vote.
well, we should probably specify exactly what it is.
Yes.
I believe the motion was that we will
I
give.
think we should, sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I think we should just get an agreement drawn up, maybe. and-
Okay.
And then, just so there's something and then approve it. I mean, I'm all for getting
Yeah.
rid of it. I
We should-
see it as a liability to the
Yeah.
county. But it just
I
seems
just have to
cleaner
throw a
if
little
we
bit
had
of history in
something
there
drawn up.
while we're talking. The hall, when it was back in the 50s when they built it, in order to get it paid off, Mrs. Ladke told me about this. That was Ken's mother, the one that had the pizza place.
Right.
Ken and Biv.
Right.
She told me that they raffled off an M Farmall tractor, brand new. And
I
it
might
was-
still have that tractor. That might be my city tractor. just
Okay,
saying.
and I can't remember if it was $20, but it went to somebody in, close to Yankton County. So that's how they got the thing paid off.
Oh, nice.
I raffled off a tractor. Now, it'd be kind of tough to raffle off one nowadays for $20.
I would go for that raffle, though. We need a new tractor, too.
Maybe a pedal
Sorry.
tractor.
Yeah, there you go.
exactly.
Yeah.
Garden tractor.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty unique.
I bet. It does sound, well, and that makes sense in that time, in that
Run that
community
back
as
to the
well.
States
Back then, the
first,
M
or-
tractor was a big deal.
I mean, I see it as right now, it's a financial liability to whoever owns it, so I have no problem
Yeah.
getting rid of it. If we want to put the stipulation on, I guess I'd like to just make sure it's clean.
Yeah.
And if we do it in the motion, that's fine, as long as it's.
Rob, Mayor Hoffman wants a property in Utica, and we would like to put a condition on that she has till the end of 2021 to have this property tore down. We would like that, or it reverts back to the county, just to kind of put a little pressure on them. Is there any issue with that?
No, and then we do it either one of two ways. One, we could put something on the title and list it accordingly, or I would probably prefer just a little agreement between them that it reverts back to us.
Okay.
We'll just do it as an agreement and I can put it together.
Okay, so do we need to pass a motion to do an agreement, and you'll put something
Yep,
like that
yep.
together? Okay.
And that will require the signature of my board, right? All three of us.
Or somebody authorized on the board too. So your
Okay.
board reacting and saying you're authorized to sign on their behalf.
Okay.
So just one of you is good.
Sure.
Or all three of you would sign, be fine too.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
So Don, your motion was to transfer this property as long as it's the house is demolished by the end of 2021. Correct. Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Kettering,
Yes.
Munson,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Clement.
Yes, motion passed. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
All right, we're early for Board of Adjustment. Do we want to go?
I think page 6.
Don, do you need to take a, do you want to take a little break? We got about 10 minutes. Mr. Herrick, how long would it take for you to do your?
Maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, do you want to go now, or
Sure.
we'll move it up? All right, we're going to move item number 17 up, and we're going to do that right now. So, next item on the agenda, item number 17, enforcement of zoning ordinances. Paige Herrick. Welcome, sir.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Paige Herring from Mission Hill. And I have to apologize if I sound a little shaky. I've suffering from shingles and it tends to be irritating. But at the last planning and zoning meeting, a board member asked why the board was discussing requests for unneeded variances. A little history quickly shed light on the subject, and some may now be asking why we are discussing enforcement of zoning regulations when it is already the county's duty to enforce them. So I will start with a little history on this subject. However, I know that regardless of what I say or how I say it, some will misconstrue it as being anti-CAFO. Yes, 2 years ago there was significant opposition to the outdated, unsafe, and unregulated CAFOs being proposed for Yankton County. Citizens opposed these operations because of the certain damage they would do to the health of the county's citizens and its environment, as well as the resulting damage to property rights and property values. Even though citizens brought these issues forward at county meetings, the Planning and Zoning Board and the Board of Adjustment refused their request to impose conditions that would lessen these damages. That was when the opposition to unsafe CAFOs stopped. And that's when opposition to irresponsible county government began. A government that decided in favor of a few to the detriment of many. Last November's election clearly showed that the county's citizens wanted a more responsible government. I am not here to oppose CAFOs. I'm here to ask if we now have a responsible county government, why are there several construction projects proceeding with expired building permits and expired conditional use permits? Several county citizens have filed a number of requests for zoning enforcement. Some were filed over a month ago, and some were filed over 2 months ago. And I don't think anybody knows what is happening. If we look at our planning and zoning ordinances, section 2301, complaints regarding violations, it says, quote, whenever a violation of this ordinance occurs or is alleged to have occurred, any person may file a complaint. Such complaint stating fully the cause and basis thereof shall be filed with the zoning administrator. The zoning administrator shall record properly such complaint with the Board of Adjustment and investigate and take action thereon as provided by this ordinance, unquote. I wonder if the Board of Adjustment is aware of any of these complaints. Further reading, and I quote, if the zoning administrator shall find that any of the provisions of this ordinance are being violated, they shall notify in writing by certified mail with return receipt the person responsible for such violations, indicating the name, the nature of the violation, and ordering the action necessary to correct it. The party responsible for the violation shall respond within 7 working days from the receipt of the letter. Otherwise, they will be considered in violation and punishable under section 2303. unquote. Has anybody received any letters, and have they responded within 7 days? Now, we look at section 2303, penalties for violation. Quote, the owner or agent of a building or premises in or upon which a violation of any provision of this ordinance has been committed or shall exist, or lessee or tenant of an entire building or entire premises in or upon which such violation shall exist, shall be subject to any one of the following: a fine not to exceed $200 for each violation, imprisonment for a period not to exceed 30 days for each violation, by both fine and imprisonment, and an action for civil injunctive relief pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 21-8. In addition, all costs and expenses involved in the case shall be paid by the defendant each day such violations continue, shall be a separate offense. Any architect, engineer, builder, contractor, agent, or other person who commits, participates in, assists in, or maintains such violation may each be found guilty of a violation of the ordinance and be subject to the same penalties herein provided. End quote. Now, I'm not going to read the last paragraph of that. I think you've all heard enough. But I would think that citizens would like to get some answers to these questions. I know obviously we can't do it tonight, but maybe it's something that could be put on the agenda for a future meeting. Thank you.
Do you want, Mr. Herrick, do you want this scheduled for next meeting, or what, I guess, what do you?
Well, I guess that's up to the commission. I can't very well tell the commission what to do, but.
Are you able to address any of these, Brian, or?
I can address every single one.
Okay.
We'd like to.
I guess if you want to address some of these.
Our office has addressed every single valid complaint that has come through. Now, valid meaning it has to be accurate as far as the location. I can't address a permit that has between 443rd, 444th running the whole length of the county. I can't act on that permit, but there were duplicates of every violation put before me, so I believe we hit all of them. Letters have gone out, certified mail, to every registered owner. In some cases, if it's some situation, it's a contract for deed. We sent it out to, I believe, 6 separate owners to make sure we legally notify every owner. So the research behind this is not simply just sending out a letter. So we've sent everybody a certified letter. We required actually they contact us by phone in 3 days, or they can provide a written response within 7 days. All of that has been done. Some have done both. We've sat down with 1, 2, 3, I believe 4 operators, if I am not mistaken. Had meetings with one party and their attorney, another party and their attorney. I'm waiting for a response on another party stating ones that I thought were in certain violation. After we reviewed it, Rob and I sat in all these meetings. We found that based on the documentation they provided, they met the 180-day period. And I honestly believe that they would never meet it, but they met the requirements of it based on the definition of actual construction and due diligence in our book, which is a very high standard, not simply work, which is moving dirt. So to their concerns, all these have done. Now, to getting to the point of actually stopping work, I've only done that on one project. It is not a CAFO, and to get to that point, that's a greater leap. But what we've done in accordance with the zoning ordinance, I've done that on every single operator and met with them personally, along with providing letters. In conjunction with Rob, we need to get together and decide how far are we going to go after this. We've notified them of violations. I have not let anybody, quote-unquote, off the hook yet. I don't believe we've let anybody pass. That's where we're at right now. And as far as the fines, you must remember, though, that those are Class 2 misdemeanors, and they have to be imposed by court. I don't like court. We don't like court. So we hope to mediate an answer as we go through this process. We know it's expensive. So the process we've installed right now is this. We will look at all the facts. Rob and I will render a decision. If they don't like the decision, they can appeal it to the county commission. If they still don't like the decision, they can take it to court. But I want a chance of multiple meetings and open discussion before we determine, final answers by both parties, and then we'll move forward from there.
When will that decision come? Because I know I've gotten multiple emails, I don't know if anybody else, about what's going on. I think a decision needs to be made. If it's in compliance or not in compliance, that decision has to be made. Some of these have gone on for a month or more. What does our zoning ordinance say? It's the response should be in 7 days?
No, that's their response to my letter.
Well, a decision has to be made. If they're good, keep on going. If they're not, we need to remedy the situation. So when can we get a decision from you?
Well, to be perfect, I have no problem making a decision. I'm not going to be out on a limb sewing behind me either.
Sure.
I've been at this a long time. Until I know I have 100% backing behind me, I'm not cutting a tree limb off. So when we know we're at that decision, I'll certainly render a decision. I have no fear of stepping out there and putting a stop work order on someone's project if they're in violation of the ordinance. The 180-day thing needs to be documented, and we have to give them opportunity to document it.
Sure.
Is there one that's pretty solid? Absolutely. Is there a couple that probably aren't going to make the cut? It's going to be a hard justification. I can't say no yet until I see all the facts. There will be no assumptions at all in this process.
Are you comfortable that the people working on the project are aware that they are essentially continuing at risk, especially the ones that either is this, absolutely in violation or likely in violation? If they're continuing, or they're aware that they may be in violation anyway? And that was my understanding, I guess, through conversation in the letter that was sent out, at least.
I think my letter is pretty clear.
Okay.
As far as what you're at risk of doing. I mean, we believe you're in violation. You need to prove differently to us, and you want to continue, you're at your own risk. And we'll have to make the decision when we make the final decision at how far are we going to go. Are we not going to allow them finish a wall, populate a barn, occupy a garage? How far are we going to go?
Have you had anyone come in when we offered we put in the notice for extensions for the building? Has anyone came in on that?
To me personally, no.
So
To
no-
Jessica, I think she would have told me, so I'd
Okay.
comfortably say no.
So to you, as far as you know, nobody has came in and asked for one of those extensions thus far?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right, any other questions from any of the commissioners? Anyone from the audience care to speak on this? All right. I guess,
Thanks for the update.
thanks, appreciate it. Entertain a motion to go into Board of Adjustment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now into Board of Adjustment. Next item on the agenda, item number 12, conditional use permit for Henry Doring. Is Mr. Doring here? Come on up, sir. Welcome. state your name for the record and tell us about your project.
My name is Henry L. Deering, and all I'm asking for is a three-car garage on 902 Beaver Avenue. That's all I got to say about it.
And currently, you're in Lakeside Commercial District, Zone District, correct?
That's
Look,
correct, yes, which is dumb.
Joe, do you want to cover what we went over at the zoning and planning
Yeah,
board?
so kind of what we discussed for, get people up to speed and people that don't have this in front of them. Mr. Deering's property, to no effect of his own, is split into rural residential on the rear half and lakeside commercial on the front half, adjoining Highway 52. Now, his home exists in a lakeside commercial. To the rear of his home is the Chalkstone Cliff, which is zoned residential, but he would have to be a cliff dweller to have a house on it. So what he's requesting is that he gets a variance to be able to place a garage next to his existing home, that it is on the lakeside commercial.
Did you say a variance? I thought we were going to invoke section 1109 since conditional use.
Oh, sure, yep.
I think.
Sorry.
So if you look in section 1107, under conditional uses, a public garage is a conditional use, but a private garage is not. So I believe at the zoning and planning meeting, we invoked section 1109 for classification for unlisted uses, and we said a private garage is very similar in nature to a public garage, so that we should allow him to build a private garage. Did you want to add anything, Brian, to this?
Well, I think we put about 2 or 3 things together. We took the public garage,
Yep.
warehousing,
Yes.
another use. Basically put it in a blender and out came private garage, which is the intent of the classification of listed
Yep.
uses.
And it's similar to how we did fireworks in a commercial district, where fireworks are not a conditional use in a commercial district, but explosive and hazardous material are. Just yet another reason I think we need some zoning ordinance updated. So that's what we determined. You have anything to add, sir, to that? I know you're in a tough spot. You just want your garage.
Well, I have a lot to say, but you probably don't want to hear it.
I think I do, actually.
No, I don't think so.
Is there any questions?
Maybe after this.
Is there any questions from anyone on the board for Mr. Doran? Okay. I'm going to go ahead.
You're gonna build behind your existing house
No.
or front?
There's a shed on it already.
Yeah.
Which was moved up from down below, the way I understand it. I was told that maybe that could be moved. Well, I don't think so unless they knock it down. So the three-car garage is going between the shed and the house, up against a cliff.
If you look on page 4 of the packet, Don, it's kind of sketched on there.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it.
And you can't see, but 10 feet, whatever, just behind this house is the
cliff.
Is where it's zoned rural residential.
He lives out in the area where I live, yeah. I can see absolutely no reason why he shouldn't have a garage there. It's not blocking anybody's view, never will.
Right.
This would be easy if that was listed, if garages and private garages and public garages, this would be a non-issue, but. All right, anything to add, sir? We'll open it up to public comment, if there's nothing else you'd like to add.
Nothing else to add.
Okay. I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Anybody care to speak on this application, either for or against? Now would be the time to do so.
You can sit down now, sir, if you would like.
Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll go
Thank
ahead and close the public comment portion. Any other questions from the board for Mr. Dory?
No.
Entertain a motion.
I move approval of the request for the conditional use permit for the garage for Mr. Dory.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Kettering,
Yes.
Los,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Swenson.
Yes.
Commsion.
Yes, motion pass.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 13, Tao Ryland River Rat Cabin LLC variances. Mr. Tao here. Welcome. Come on up, state your name for the record, and tell us about your project.
Good evening, Phil Taw and my wife Julie Ryland from Gayville. You should have the package in front of you. We're here to move forward with the variance and the building permit request on that Lot A of Parcel C. From the recommendation from the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago, they approved the variance, recommended approval of that, and moved forward with that. The philosophical discussion ensued about all the variances for the rest of the other building there, since something was done on that property in 2006 for multiple beds, multiple sleeping quarters, that kind of thing. And I know there's a lot of other properties within the county, so philosophically, they felt that they just can't fix every property in the county because there's hundreds of them, so they don't want to necessarily get into the details of the variances of every 5 foot and 10 foot like you see in the package before you. And I generally agree with that philosophy. However, in this case, because of the situation that my wife and I find ourselves in with the opposition, and it's been over a year now, this needs to happen this way in accordance with 1503. So I know the Planning and Zoning Committee did not recommend that part of it, but this body, of course, can do that and recommend that or approve that. I've consulted with Mr. McGinnis on this issue. We all want to get this resolved and done, and this is the best way to clean it up for us and for the long term of this property. The other issues that are going on with this property and the contesting of the deeds and all that other issue is still there. And another deed was filed Friday, I believe, on the 30th, to clean some of that up on their side. But that issue will remain for a long time, and that issue will be taken up in another venue. And if you have any questions about that, I'll be glad to talk about it, but after a year, I'm kind of tired of talking about it. So we're here to ask for a variance for our barn, our new garage, and the building permit to move forward with that, and then all the variances on the outbuilding for that second residence, and approve it as indicated in the package. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I request that Mr. McGinnis come kind of give an overview of what?
Yeah, that'd be good.
What this is proposed and then what kind of transpired in the planning and zoning?
Would you care to do that, give an overview of this?
Here or there.
Wherever's comfortable for you.
So basically where we started here is we have what's called a non-conforming lot. It's a lot smaller than the required acreage for this area, which is ag. So on the cover sheet, I try to break it down, but it's a lot of verbiage to understand. But what you have here is a lot of, what we're attempting to do is that we're not creating separate lots, but your ordinance allows for 2 principal dwellings upon a lot, all right, provided it meets the area and setbacks for yards as well as area. Well, if it's not 20 acres, it doesn't meet 1. But if you get a variance for the lot size, we actually get a variance for 2 supposed lot sizes. this is not necessarily that unique in the aspect of, well, say a 20 acre and someone has a 5 acre and they have 2 houses on it for whatever reason. I've seen that before. This is just a little bit smaller scale per se. So in 1503, it allows you to do that. So what we're proposing to do here is create, and it's a very loose term, a lot of 0.8 acres and a lot of 0.69 acres. So it's allowing a variance in excess of 19 acres. In addition, we have to put front yard variances, as you can read there, of 25, to allow for setbacks of 20 feet and 35 feet, and rear yard setbacks of 5 feet and 5 feet. So that would take care of the structures that are there now, and reducing make it a non-conforming lot, or more importantly, a conforming lot, would then allow you to do something with that lot, such as add a garage. In the true interpretation of a zoning ordinance, if your lot is too small, say you have a 4-acre lot in a 20-acre ag district, you can't add a building. And in true interpretation of the ordinance, you can't do anything with that lot until it becomes a conforming lot. So what we did here, if we make that a conforming lot, then the garage that was added can be added and could become a conforming structure, although it needs a variance of 65 feet on the edge of the property. I believe it's placed about 10 feet off the east property line. So it's a lot of variances, it's a lot of things, but we're seeing it more and more of people wanting to do stuff on non-conforming lots.
So there were essentially 2 variances requested that night, or discussed that night. The first was what we see here, variance of lot size and yard setbacks. And that essentially, just so I understand, that would bring this property from a non-conforming lot to a conforming lot. And what that variance is, that Mr. Todd and Ms. Ryland had no bearing on, they purchased the property that way, correct?
Correct. It was created before the zoning ordinance.
And then the second variance was the garage that was added. That was the second discussion, was an action taken by them. But the first one was due to no action of the property owners.
Correct. They didn't create that lot. That lot was created prior to their acquisition, prior to zoning even, so prior to 2001. What the Planning Commission chose not to pursue, and as Mr. Tao mentioned, was they didn't want to make non-conforming lots have to be required to get variances so that they can add buildings or add onto their house or do things like this. But the fact of the reality is, if you follow your zoning ordinance, that's what has to be done.
Right.
So we're just trying to make it a clean slate, move on, and settle your whatever else is to be settled off county business.
And I think it's important to, the Planning Commission did not vote on this first variance. It's not that it was denied, it just was not chosen to go forward with even approving or
I thought that
voting.
wasn't needed, but
It was, nobody wanted to set precedents that anyone with a non-conforming lot had to come forward in the county and go through a variance just because you're owning a non-conforming lot.
The fact that it was published and noticed and everything else makes it live, though, and
Sure.
a non-vote still makes it free to you all to act upon.
and the applicant wants to go this route as well, so. Any other questions for Brian? So, any questions for the applicant before I open it up?
So, let me get in my mind so I'm straight.
I'll try.
Tough challenge.
For me.
Yeah, get it in my mind. The barn that was there, the house that was there, both facilities were there originally when he bought it, right?
As I understand it, yes.
And they may have done some revisions in the barn so that another family can live there.
As I understand it, yes.
And that was all done in the past history. Okay.
pre-Brian.
The only issue, the one issue is the garage that was constructed. And-
Yes.
And my understanding is that neighbors have at least one written letters saying that they are in full agreement with having the garage there.
I think there's been statements, documents, and others in support. Looks like Miss Leanne Johnson wrote a letter here, handwritten in support of the garage. So yes, there's been comments and
That's the closest
statements.
neighbor.
Is it the closest to the east?
No.
No. Merkwan.
You're
Yeah.
in Merkwan.
Leanne's, I believe, further west
She owns to the north.
and north.
Exactly.
Any other questions from the board? Any other questions from the commissioners? I guess I'd like to say, just Phil and I are both VFW lifetime members, and he was a supporter of my campaign. I just would like to let the public know about that. Anybody else like to?
Mine as well, I guess. I disclosed it at planning and zoning. I guess I wasn't sure if this was gonna be tonight, so.
Count me in on that one.
But
I do have a question on variance 1. So if we approve variance 1, what precedent does that set going forward for the rest of the county? Do we foresee,
what was discussed at planning and zoning, the fear was that we'd set the precedence that anybody who's sitting on a non-conforming lot as of today is gonna have to rush in, fill out an application for variance and get approved to become conforming. And I guess my take on it at the time was that, we shouldn't, the planning commission should not be deciding if an applicant wants to bring his lot into conformance or not. If anybody out there knows they have a non-conforming lot and wants to bring it into compliance, I think that would be their right.
yep,
There's something like 837 non-conforming lots in agricultural district in Yankton County.
but the only motivation for coming in and
There's a lot.
and doing that would be if you wanted to add a building.
Correct, and then there's also the exemption of the farmsteads, which we discovered with a planning commission member who came in needing to replace a building, tore one down, wanted to replace it. Well, if he qualifies as a farmstead, then he's good. He is a farmstead. He has the building, the sheds, everything else meets our definition of a farmstead, so therefore he is conforming, no matter what the lot size is.
No matter the size.
Just as we've been, approving plats of farmsteads in the past. So only if you need to do something on that lot, then you may trip the caveat of a farmstead. If you just built on virgin ground and it doesn't meet the requirement of a farmstead, then yeah, you might need a variance, but also you need to remember anything you do, you are out of compliance, and you would have to report to any lending institution, anyone else. You are not in compliance with the zoning ordinance. So we're not going out and looking for it. It would only come to the county if they came in for a permit.
Rob, what's your take on that? Do you think it would be precedent setting or not?
Well, any decisions you make are precedent. So, but I agree with Sherry made the comment and Brian made the comment too. I mean, if they want to come in, and I know Joe said if they want to come in and make that request, that's up to them. But unless they're triggering some event where they need to come in and make that request, that could happen in the future sometime. It isn't that they'll get to rush in and make a decision today and try to make it a conforming to put something on it. And if they're never going to, then they never have to deal with it.
Any other questions before I open it up to public comment? Any other questions?
Yeah, if I remember right, was it the end of last year, the variance 2 did come before the planning commission and the zoning, and the board of adjustment. This has been tried before and kind of got to field goal, never touchdown kind of thing. So was this one that was subject to the $100 fine?
Yeah,
Okay,
this
so-
stemmed from the flyover.
So
A
how
year
many
ago.
of those, did we have like 100 of those people? Don, raise your hand. Okay. Was there about 100 or
I
so?
think there was 300 and some
300?
violations.
Okay,
It-
so-
This stemmed from the flyover over a year ago. Yeah, over a year ago.
You know, so I
Stage finder.
guess my point of bringing this to the discussion is, say we had 300 folks who did something they shouldn't have. So they've all went through that process to come in, pay their fine, whatever it was, to become in compliance. So is this any different than all of those? Is what I'm looking for. So we either built
I guess to answer, maybe clarify things, my understanding, and this is, I mean, it's hard to get a true answer, but my understanding of how all this was handled was anybody found to be in violation from the change finder where they had built a structure without a building permit, paid the $100 fine, and moved on their way.
Okay.
There were several instances where there was a gentleman who built a structure that was too close to the lot line, similar to this, that had to come in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, request a variance for that, get that approved, and then paid the $100 fine for not having the building permit.
Okay.
But he went through the same process and it was approved. His variance was approved in the same manner that the Planning and Zoning, I guess, recommended approval for this one.
Okay, so of those 300, none of them were denied.
Not that I'm aware of.
That's what I wanted to know.
Any other questions before I open it up, public comment? Anybody care to speak on this topic, this application? Now would be the time to do so. Come on up, sir, state your name for the record, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Ross Denherter. I represent co-owner Bellaterre 1 LLC. First thing I'd like to point out for the record is that there are 2 other tenants in common owners of this particular property. One of them is Richard Weaverstead, and the other is Bellaterre 1 LLC. Neither of those entities were provided notice of the planning and zoning meeting or of this meeting according to the notice list that is in front of you. I believe that's jurisdictional, and I think that means this particular group does not have the jurisdiction to be able to hear and decide tonight. I think it needs to be kicked down the road for a redo so that proper notice can be issued to all of the interested parties. Getting to the substantive issues, request for a variance in this particular case, first of all, this notion of creating lots, this using 1503 as a method to avoid the necessity of platting. I think the problem with that is that it's an end round of the rule that requires a conditional use permit under the agricultural district's conditional uses. The second dwelling upon the property where someone who's not a family member is living in it. That does require a conditional use, and I don't know that there's any exception under your zoning ordinance that avoids the CUP requirement. I believe that's problematic and is grounds to overturn a approval of this particular request, and it also tries to get around your subdivision ordinance. This is it's essentially creating a lot without creating a lot. The only way to create lots is to plat. This is end-rounding your own subdivision ordinance, which is required to create 2 lots out of 1, the first of which is already non-conforming. The benefits of the CUP are important in this particular case because they are in keeping with, they give you the opportunity to remain in keeping with the intent of an agricultural district. If you look at the actual intent in your ordinance, it specifically says we're trying to minimize residential properties in the farming district. Also, the other issue that would be taken up under a CUP is the septic system problem. This particular property has 2 separate dedicated septic services to the separate residences on this particular property. ARSD 74530116. It's the South Dakota regulation that limits the lot size for septic services when there is a well on the property. I understand that there is a well here. That's a violation of state law, which is brought into further nonconformance with the approval.
Your time's up, sir.
I have about 4 more points that I need to set for the record
Your time is
in
up.
order to properly appeal.
Your time is up. I give everybody 3 minutes. Everybody's the same. It's been like that since January. Anybody else care to speak on this? Come on up, sir. State your name for the record, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Josh Johnson, 30443 446 Avenue, Ballin. I'd like to, Ross, use my time to finish talking, if that's okayable or not, I don't know.
No, we've never done that before. It's your time. Rob, what,
We've used it, we've done that before.
is that acceptable? All right, it's
Thank you.
acceptable. Go ahead.
Thank you. The other thing I'd like you guys to take a look at is your definition of a variance under your own zoning code. It's really interesting because your ordinance specifically limits the scope of what a variance can be issued for. I'd encourage you all to flip it open if you have it in front of you and read that. There is not an opportunity for a variance to be granted under this condition. I know this county has granted it for a long time, however, you are not authorized to issue variances relating to setbacks. I was surprised too when I saw that, but that is a limitation in your own ordinance. The other thing is that a variance requires a hardship not of the owner's making. In this particular situation, the property was already non-conforming, and the construction of the structure without the building permit was a hardship that was only of the property owner's making. He furthered the nonconformance of the property and did not apply for a building permit ahead of time, which would have allowed him the opportunity to address this on the front side. Your own ordinance specifically prohibits the granting of a variance if it's furthering a nonconforming use. I encourage all of you to flip through the nonconforming use sections of your zoning ordinance. I would like to read for you real quickly the intent of an ag district, because I think this is enlightening. The intent of an ag district is to protect agricultural lands and lands consisting of natural growth from incompatible land uses in order to preserve land best suited to agricultural uses and land in which the natural environment should be continued, and to limit residential, commercial, and industrial development to those areas where they are best suited for reasons of practicality and service delivery. Ask yourself whether granting the variances in this particular case is consistent with that intent. That's the zone. If there's a problem with that, you guys have the ability to change the zone. You also have the ability to change your ordinance. This individual has created his own problem.
Time.
Last thing I would like to bring to your attention.
Time's up.
This is
Time's up. Anyone
quasi-judicial.
else care to speak on the subject? Now would be the time. Come on up, sir. State your name.
I had a question can I ask him a question?
Yeah, if you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah,
One
Mr.
second.
Denherter, I understand, you're the city attorney of Yankton, is that correct?
I am, part-time.
And you work by the month, is that correct?
I work under a contract ongoing.
Okay, I just read in the paper you were hired by the month, that's why I asked.
No.
You don't work by the month then?
No.
Oh, you work like our state's attorney, 80/20 then or something? Or?
It's just whatever they need me for on an ongoing basis.
Oh, you're not a full-time employee then?
No.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Gunderson, come on up, state your name for the record, and you can have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to donate my time to Mr. Denherter. He's better at it than I am.
An additional thing I'd like to point out for you guys, this is a quasi-judicial matter that you're taking up. You're sitting in judgment over an individual that is not the broad general public, and your decisions affect his rights as well as those individuals who are affected by your decision, not the overall county. What that means is the conflict of interest rules that govern what you can and cannot vote on are a much more stringent standard to meet. As a result, I would strongly recommend those of you that have received campaign contributions to abstain from your vote. The last thing I would indicate here is that if granted, are the fees and permits going to be issued under the new fee structure? I would encourage you to consistently apply prospectively your own fee schedule that you have recently adopted in this regard.
I have one question.
Yes.
Cody's owned this property prior to Mr. Tao purchase? Yes.
I believe the zoning has never changed at this particular location. It's an ag district.
But the owner was Cody's? Jack.
Yes, that's correct.
And would this be an issue if they still own it?
If Cody still owned it?
Yeah. Would we be talking about this?
Yes, the issue, you're talking about the notice and the division of ownership?
The ability to have two houses on that non-conforming property?
That will always be a problem as far as a non-conforming use. I think
Pre-existing grandfather, they owned it for...
No, this new structure has setback problems too. I mean, there are problems all over the place. There's setback problems with the septic system, property lines. I mean, there's not a single setback that I think can be met with this particular request.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have 1 minute and 26 seconds left of your time, Mr. Gunderson.
Won't take that long. We decided to add on to our house recently, and we came in for a building permit. And it's a 1916 farmhouse. It was moved to our location in 1965. And so we came in for the building permit, and Jennifer told us we couldn't have one because we were too close to the lot line of the adjoining landowner. It took 5 trips to the zoning office, 4 trips to the lawyer. We ended up having to acquire land from our adjoining landowner because we were pretty much informed that we couldn't get a variance because we were too close to the lot line. Now that was the rule as of 2 weeks ago, Brian? That was the rule we had to live with. I asked you to continue that situation. Thank you.
So you came into the zoning office 2 weeks ago and were not able to get a permit, is that?
It took 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get it done, Brian?
Why did it take that long?
2 weeks at least.
Week and a half. Saw her right 3 times in short time, so she was Johnny on the spot going back and forth, so.
Yeah.
But you could have applied for variance.
But according to the ordinance, we wouldn't have gotten it.
I could interrupt again. People on TV can't hear you when you're not by the microphone.
All right, I think he was talking to Mr. McGinnis. Mr. Gunderson.
You could have applied for a variance, as I discussed with your wife that time, and we decided to go another way and tried some legal descriptions, which eventually worked out, and yes, you did acquire land from your LLC to the west, I believe, correct?
East.
East, I'm sorry.
Yeah, our tough neighbors to the east are our kids. We own basically the property on both sides. But, you know, there is some question about how these rules are being interpreted.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak on this? Either for or against? Come on up, ma'am. State your name for the record, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
Hello, Patty Gramco. I believe the septic issue was handled already by the DNR. I don't know why that's coming up. Just to beat it a little bit more or something. I don't know. Also, precedent setting was the fact that Todd Woods, Deb Bonestead, and I can't remember if Mr. Epp received money from Mr. Shank when they were going to vote on adding, I don't remember his name, to the water board or the water commission, whatever you want to call it. And they all voted, every single one of them. I kind of think that's precedent setting also.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak on this? Come on up, ma'am. State your name. Give you 3 minutes.
Kathy Weiss. I live in the northern part of the county.
Yeah, there we go.
If I remember correctly, when the planning and zoning was discussing this months ago, they said this was all grandfathered. The house, the other building, whatever, everything except...
Move that a little bit further away. There we go, thanks.
Everything except the garage. They had already dealt with that back when it was that kayak rental place. And this all predated zoning, so the condition of the house and that other building should all be grandfathered. Maybe Brian can address that.
But we discussed, there was a conditional use permit for bed and breakfast granted in 2006 for that property and the secondary home.
That's, I think, what was discovered.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak on this application? Now would be the time to do so. Come on up, sir. State your name, and I'll give you 3 minutes. Welcome.
Louis Johnson, Ballin. In all this discussion on the variances and everything that is not right with that lot, I've never heard a timeline. Like, the original house was there, fine. We changed another building into a second residence. We put up a garage. What was the timeline for all of these? Was zoning in effect when they put the second sewer system in? Was zoning in effect when they put the garage in? I believe it was. And I find it utterly amazing that Phil and their group of married men sued us and kept us tied up in court for over a year because we did everything legal, but he knew we didn't follow the rules correctly, or they weren't interpreted correctly. But yet he didn't know, it was a surprise to him that he needed a variance, a building permit. I just find that totally unbelievable. I'd like to know the timeline. How many of these things happened after he should have gotten a permit? And I think that should be held in question because I don't know, I asked once, how many lawsuits were filed against the zoning board, the zoning director, and the county commissioners over the hog buildings? And by whom? And never have heard a word. All I've heard is some of the people complaining about, oh my God, all the money it's costing the county for these lawsuits. Well, their lawyer gets paid whether he wins or loses. How many cases against the county have they won?
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak on this application? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Mr. Tao, you want to come up and address the septic system issue, please? And if any other commissioners have questions for me.
I'll be happy to address the issues that were brought up tonight.
I know in the, was it the January?
I'll just go through these, Commissioner, if you don't mind. Jurisdiction and notice. I did my part. Due diligence. I mailed the letters. I got the list of addresses from the zoning administrating assistant who got them from the board, director of equalization office. Everyone was notified. And then there was an issue with the United States Postal Service. We put them in a mailbox at least 11 days prior, if not 12. I can't help what happens to the postal system. All right? I did my part. If there are issues with the county and how the notice works and what river bottom land you want to put on Beacon, knock yourselves out. The prior commission, on a lot of these issues, had every opportunity to fix the ordinance, to fix this situation, and they did nothing until the president of the Quality of Life had an issue, and now it's an issue. You want to know why? Ours is the only one that isn't approved. That's exactly why. Make no bones about it. So, jurisdiction, not my problem. You want to solve it? They want to complain about it? Let them do it. CUP approves July 2006. Enough said. Septic issues. Inspected at the time of the CUP in 2006 by the DNR. Again, inspected in March of this year by the DNR. No issues with setbacks were noted on the septic systems. They're all installed correctly, and they're far enough away from the well.
And there were 2 at both of those?
Yes.
Yes, there are 2 separate septic systems.
When I purchased it in 2005, there were 2 separate septic systems. We have not installed any septic systems since I have owned that property. End of story.
Okay. Setbacks, distances for variance. I just find that humorous. How many setbacks in the last couple of years, or who knows what, from garages to CAFOs to any number of other things for right-of-way, get their, keep production land in so we don't have the hog barn too far away from the road or whatever. Makes no sense. Can't read my writing here. What's that say? Hardships. I'll talk about the hardship in a minute. Conflict of interest. I find it refreshing that you 3 admit that we gave you some money for your campaign. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. For the last 2 years, the other 3 who were running for a campaign received money from just about everyone in this room on the other side of this one issue. Some of them gave more than we did. Not once was it ever brought up when they voted on their CAFO, when their Class F, their barns, their you name it. Not once was it ever brought up. Oh, by the way, this gentleman here, he gave to my campaign, but that doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter, but I appreciate your openness to the public and transparency. It's unfortunate we have to go that far, but that's the way it is. Mr. Denhurst talks about changing the ordinance. They had every opportunity. Planning, zoning, they just worked around the ordinance for the last 2 to 4 years, not changing a dang thing, just make it work the way they wanted it to. Okay? Timeline. We've talked about that before. Everything on that property was built by Mr. Cody before my wife bought it in 2005. Everything except the barn that we started the process, our garage, in 2015, completed in 16. We've already talked about that error, that mistake. Nobody knows. We're not trying to avoid a $45 building permit fee for that. That's a ridiculous amount of fee anyway, so charge me whatever you want. It doesn't matter, okay? That's ridiculous. So everything was there. The septics were there, the buildings were there, the fences were there, the river was there, the rocks were there, you name it.
Any other questions from anyone on the board for Mr. Tao?
I have one comment.
Yep, go ahead.
I find it very interesting that Mr. Schenk has already offered to have us buy his portion of the land for $15,000, and in return, all the arguments about our garage will go away. So I don't know how he has control over all these people here, but he promises us that if we pay for his portion of our land, that there will no longer be a problem with this garage. I find that interesting.
15's down from 33, and he wants 80 for the land, so we're in some kind of conform adjacent to it.
All right.
So it's,
Thank you.
I find it laughable.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of the board members? Entertain a motion from the board.
We need to do two
What's that,
two
Dwayne?
approvals at first.
Yeah, if you have some discussion, yeah, go ahead.
Are you making a motion now, or are we still talking?
Well,
We can discuss.
Let's talk. I'm
Okay.
just curious, because there's two issues. It's the existing lot as it sits, and then the new structure. So I don't know if we want to handle that as two, or just if it's encompassed in one variance,
Rob?
written as one.
Rob, how would you recommend that? Should we approach this as two separate variances or approve
I'd
two
do it as
separate
two
actions?
separate-
Two
two
separate
separate
actions. So we have a variance of minimum yard setback for the structure that was built, and then we have a variance to variance the piece of property that was created before zoning was here, which we haven't done, before. And I guess with that, it is kind of troublesome to think of it that way, because on our analysis, there's 800 and some structures in ag alone that don't meet the 20-acre setback. Are we going to have to variance each one of those? We've never, as far as I can tell, we've never varianced for a structure that was there before zoning before. I understand the reasoning that he wants that, but
I think we still look at,
yeah.
if the applicant is requesting it and it makes sense, I would say.
Yeah,
that
we can certainly do that.
do it. I don't know that it's
Bruce?
real precedent setting, and I think
Okay.
Mr. Denherter's correct. We need to, and we discussed it at the last planning and zoning meeting, that, it's one more thing on the list of things in the ordinance that we need to look
We
at,
need to
because
look
things
at.
have been overlooked for so many years and worked around, and somebody needs to start making these changes.
Yep. Gary, Don, what do you guys, you got any comments you'd like to make? Don, do you got something?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think
Go ahead.
I would recommend you start with the lot first. Start with the lot, make that a conforming lot, and that would give you standing in order to be able to grant variances.
Okay. Don, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess we have two sides of the issues that have been drawn in the sand. And it seems like if we ever are going to move ahead in this county, we've got to start burying those issues and moving forward. I would look at this as I would look at any farmhouse that somebody came in and asked for a variance or anything else, if it made common sense, if it was there prior to, I would really evaluate it in favor of giving it an okay. That's kind of where I'm at on it.
Thanks, Don.
I guess as far as all these variances go, I've been sadly spending some of my time reading old minutes from a decade ago, and I come across variance after variance after variance, many of them for lot lines, acreage, you name it, it can be a unique situation. And for us all of a sudden to say, no more variances for lot lines, as of today, without having changed anything in our ordinance on our part to change that situation. The other thing I have a kind of a challenge with is, this should have happened in 2018. When the 300 were taken care of, there was no reason not to do number 299 or whatever it is. And Don's right. At some point, we need to stop throwing sand at each other. And that's Sherry getting on her scolding and putting on the mom hat a little bit. But he's right, exactly right. We need to move forward. And we need to make it all work. And we can't make it all work if we keep bringing the baggage along. And I'm getting a little cracked voice here, because this is one of the reasons I ran, is because we need to close this and move forward. And I ask everybody to start doing that. I really do. I got 3 years and, 3 more months of this job. And I would like to look forward to working with each and every one of you on this. And I know this shouldn't be part of this hearing, but I think it just needs to be thrown out there and said, because we keep tiptoeing around it. And again, I get to this and we start reading the true definition of a variance. All of a sudden, I think back over the last couple years, we shouldn't have been awarding any of those variances, but it was done. And we can't take that back. And until we have a chance to change our ordinances so these variances are very few and very far between, I think it would be unfair to this application to deny it.
Well said. Joe, you got anything?
I think it's been said.
Entertain a motion.
I'd move approval of variance for the non-conforming lot, invoking section 1503 to create 2 lots, 1.8 acres, second of 0.69 acres, resulting in variances in excess of 19 acres. In addition, front yard variances of 75 feet to 20 feet and 35 feet, and rear yards of 75 feet to 5 feet and 5 feet area required.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Healy,
Yes.
Lowe's,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Swenson.
Yes.
Clement.
Yes. Motion pass. Now we have the final variance. Do we want discussion on that? Entertain a motion on the second variance for yard variance.
I'd move approval of the setback of a newly constructed post-zoning regulations garage, which requires a side variance of 65 feet on the east edge of the property.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Don.
That's under condition that pays the fine.
Yes,
Yep.
yep.
Yeah, I'd like to add a $100 fine, the same $100 fine that everybody else had.
Yep. And
I'd add that to that.
Again, I know Mr. Denherter brought up moving to the new fee schedule, but this started a year and a half ago.
Yeah. We're not charging anybody with those entrance applications that or
Right,
those
I've
before
had it in
either this
before.
evening, so.
I'd like to just reiterate, of the change finders, there was a property that a lot of people in this room voted to approve a variance. He built a shed too close to his lot line, and he was granted a variance and paid a $100 fine and went on his way, and it didn't take a year and a half, and we certainly didn't have the antics that we have tonight, so.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Healy,
Yes.
Swenson.
Yes.
Lowe's,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Clement.
Yes, motion passed. Entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're back into regular session. Do we need a break or keep on going? Good. Gary, need a break? Good.
I'm good.
Anybody else need a break? All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 14, reinvestment payment in South Dakota Jobs Program. Mr. Molenseed and Joe Fila, G-O-E-D. Welcome.
Did you guys have a copy of
No.
this information?
We do not.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the time tonight and having us down to visit a little bit about GOED and the Livestock Development Project and Sales Tax Rebate Program. Adam Molseed, I'm a Community Development Rep for the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Have with me also Joe Fiala. He's the current Business Development and Community Development Director for GOED. As we just kind of flip through, this is a presentation that we've put together for different county presentations, so we've been hitting up a lot of county meetings and other things of that nature. And so we'll kind of breeze through some of this stuff, but on the second page on the agenda, we're just again going to go over a few things as far as a brief overview of GOED, and then also the sales tax rebate program on livestock development projects. So our mission at GOED is primarily to grow the GDP. We want to enhance the tax base, of course, and also create good paying jobs that also have benefits tied to them. And then kind of a catch-all is also to improve the overall quality of life of all South Dakotans. Now, to achieve this mission, in our agency, we have a small agency at GOED, but it takes a lot of us moving in one direction to help achieve that mission. We have our administration staff. We also have a marketing team as well. And then we have a finance division that handles a lot of our financial programs that we offer. And then we also have our business development team, who is the boots on the ground working with existing businesses in our state, doing business retention and expansion visits, and then also trying to recruit and expand businesses from outside the state to South Dakota. And then on my side of things, as far as the community development team goes, we work a lot with local economic development organizations, community stakeholders that play a role in economic development. We help position them for success. So we do a lot of strategic planning, board development, and just basically give them the how-tos of economic development. So we're crisscrossing the state on a daily and weekly basis, trying to make those economic development organizations better and stronger. And as we kind of move through here, agriculture in South Dakota, as everyone knows, is going to be South Dakota's #1 industry. We all know that. It's one of the main drivers in South Dakota. And ever since Governor Noem's taken office, she's made it a point and really to stress that ag is important to South Dakota. And she wants to find new ways and existing programs to help enhance and grow the ag industry in South Dakota. So currently we have two sales tax rebate programs. One is the reinvestment payment program, and then also the South Dakota Jobs program. These both were created in 2013, and the reinvestment payment program is going to be for projects that are at $20 million and greater, or $2 million in total equipment costs. Whereas the South Dakota Jobs program is just the direct opposite of that. It's going to be for projects $20 million and under, and then $2 million and under in total equipment costs. And typically in the past, these programs have been used for manufacturing businesses and as well as wind projects in the state of South Dakota. So if you flip through your packet there, you'll run into the manufacturing example. This is just going to give you an idea as how these programs were used previously. Just to give you an idea on this example here, in a $10 million manufacturing equipment example, the business development rep would be working that project. And to put us on a level playing field with other states surrounding South Dakota and also the country potentially, those states typically exempt manufacturing equipment on the sales tax side of things, whereas, as you guys probably know, South Dakota has a pretty broad-based sales tax system. So to put us on that level playing field, that's what these programs were enacted to do. So we're able to rebate these sales taxes back to the manufacturer. Now, on the livestock development side of things, we're using these programs, these existing programs, so it's good to note that this is nothing new. We're just utilizing these two existing programs that the state of South Dakota has, and we're using it for livestock development projects. And one of the main caveats as to how and why these can be used within these programs is because they fall within GOED's designated targeted industries. And so that's going to include pretty much everything in ag, precision ag, value-added ag, and then production ag as well. And what's going to qualify for these is typically your concentrated animal feeding operations, so your CAFOs. These are going to be your feedlots, hog units, poultry. Aquaculture is also going to fall within the definition of livestock now, so projects of that nature would also apply. Two of the main caveats to this program currently, for these programs or for the livestock development projects to qualify, you have to have a conditional use permit, zoning regulations in place, and then also the project has to add livestock as well.
I know, can I add something
Yeah,
there?
go ahead.
I know when we have our 8-county meeting, a lot of the other counties seem, they're upset because these smaller operations that don't require a conditional use permit, they can't,
Correct.
they can't capitalize on it, whereas with Yankton, we have a lower number, so even these smaller operations where we issue a conditional use permit, we're able to use this program where a lot of other counties
Correct.
don't have that ability. So-
I was just in another county recently today, and theirs basically cut off at about 1,000 head, and they had a bunch at about 500 that, you know, just don't require the permitting at that point, so.
Thank you.
So now on the livestock development side, this program's gonna function pretty similar as that manufacturing example. But a few of the main things that are different here is that the developer of the project is gonna sign over an affidavit, and he's gonna assign the sales tax dollars on these projects back directly to the counties. And 100% of the sales tax collected on these projects will be directed back to the general fund of the county. So those are the two main differences there, is that the money is not going to flow through the developer at all. It'll go directly to you guys as the county.
Not everything, though, is charged sales tax? Is that
Correct. There's a possibility, and we haven't had one go through the whole process yet as far as being rebated back, so we're a little bit new in the process, so we're not 100% sure as far as everything that's going to be taxable within a project.
What wouldn't be taxable, just?
There could be some labor included in an invoice as far as on the contracting side that would not be subject to sales tax. So a lot of things is going to be mainly your equipment, and then anything else that's going to be going in there. I mean, it could be flooring. I mean, it could be anything.
Do you have a percentage, approximately X percentage will be taxable? Do you have a rough estimate? I'm not going to hold you.
I don't personally. I would probably venture to guess closer to 85-90%. I mean, with that, I think that would be fairly accurate.
For the most part, almost the whole project will be subject to sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
What if somebody's getting a state grant in addition to that? Would they, you know, if they're getting a state grant, will they, if they're not paying sales tax on that, I assume we won't get that either.
Well, any dollar spent on the project will be subject to sales tax. The grant wouldn't, it would not exempt any purchases at all at that point in time. So, yeah, so any purchases made by the developer or the contractor would still be subject to tax.
Thanks.
So kind of continuing on there, just going through to the livestock development example now. This one's a $10 million project example here. So just to give you an idea of the maximum, the state would be able to collect is $450,000. So that's 4.5% state sales tax. And then again, noting that not everything, as you stated, is going to be taxable on a lot of these projects as well. And then we, like Joe reiterated earlier here just a few minutes ago, we expect a good portion of the project to be taxable as well. And until we see a few projects come through, then we'll have a better idea as far as what we're looking at as far as percentages for you. But in this example, just to be on the way conservative side of things, if we were just to say half of that $10 million was actually taxable, so the $225,000 would be what the sales tax rebate would be. And then once that project is completed, the county again would receive those funds, and that would go into the general fund as well. So the project could take up to a year, 2 years, you know, potentially more than that, just depending on the scope of the project, and some different things that are going on.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So, sorry to keep interrupting you,
That's all right.
but so this is basically piggyback or a mirror of manufacturing program that's been in existence, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, is that what you're seeing there as far as 80% of that project is falling? I mean, is it basically the exact same project, or is anything? Or,
Some of the main difference, or I guess another difference that I didn't really hit on as far as the percentages go. Typically, I don't think we've ever done 100%, quote me if I'm wrong. In a manufacturing example, typically it might be around 50%, 60, 70, somewhere in that range. And a lot of times that's going to be dictated by the project. And that'd be something that the business development rep is working on, and there may be a need there to push that project across the finish line to increase those percentages. But I don't know what the highest we've ever given back to,
I
Joe.
couldn't recall, but maybe 85%.
Okay. And that's probably rare too. I would say it's a little bit lower than that usually in a manufacturing
Don't hold
world.
me to that though. 'cause
No, just.
You just said 85 to 90%.
I'm mostly
getting
just
lower.
curious if there's much difference
Well, that-
between
that would
this
be on the ag side.
program and the manufacturing, if there's differences between this and the manufacturing
Yeah.
program, or if it's a carbon copy.
Yeah.
Or,
It is utilizing it's all in statute, so there's been nothing as far as regulations, statutory regulations that have been changed. There's no legislative issue there that Governor Noem and her administration had to go through to kind of get this project off the ground. So we are kind of working within the constraints of those current programs, but we do have the ability to do 100% on a manufacturing example, but typically we haven't gone that far, but in this scenario we are. And that'd be more of a policy decision at that point. So again, the use of the funds will go directly into the general fund for the county, and there's literally no strings attached to these dollars. They can be used for anything that you see fit. That could be a rainy day fund, funding the sheriff's office, buying a road grader, upgrading a road, you name it. Whatever you want to use and earmark those dollars for, you can do that. But you just have to know that those dollars won't be realized until that project is completed. And again, we haven't seen a project go all the way through, but I would venture to guess probably no more than about 2 months as far as the return, as far as the sales tax rebate would go. I can't imagine it would take much longer than that from when the project is completed to when those dollars would be realized in your account. So how the program works, you're going to be wanting to contact GOED as soon as possible. So you're going to want to get in touch with your local business development rep that's assigned to your territory. And Melissa will be that contact, and here in just a little bit we'll move forward shortly, and I'll show you a map of all the geographic areas our business development team covers, and all their contact information will be in here as well. But we can't stress it enough that we want to be on the forefront of these projects the moment they're starting to be talked about. So the moment you hear about these projects, we want you contacting GOED or somebody contacting our office so we're aware of it, so we can get ahead of the game, so we can get in touch with the developer and start this process sooner rather than later. So that's one thing I just can't stress enough, is we want to be on the forefront of these projects before they get off the ground. So GOD, once we get that project to a proposal level, the business development rep will work that. They will work with the developer on submitting an application, which can be found on our state website, our GOED website. From there, our finance team will kind of do a glance over of that application. And as far as if we feel everything is in order, at that point, the county would be sent a letter of that proposal, and then you guys would be able to move forward with your permitting process at that time. However, that proposal still goes through our Economic Development Board as well. It's more of a formality at that point. Once it's been looked over by our finance team, I would say 99.9% of the time it's going to be approved. You'd probably agree with that.
We try to make sure that the projects fit and everything is in order before it goes to the board. That way the board it can be assured that all of their questions have been answered and that things are constructed appropriately and in the right fashion.
Yep. So from there, after we get to the point where the developer is going to be signing an affidavit. So again, we have to follow the constraints of the current programs that we have. That developer will sign the affidavit and assign those tax dollars to the county where that project lies. So again, that developer is not going to be a pass-through. They're not going to see any of those funds at all whatsoever. And then as far as the company is going to pay the sales tax, they're going to remit that periodically as required by the Department of Revenue. And then again, once that project is completed, those dollars will be directed to the county.
So once it goes through a process and you get, because we did one of these actually, where somebody had a certificate, is that all that individual has to do? Or is there, because he brought a certificate saying, this is the approximate amount. Is there any additional steps that he has to do? Because we're in the position where, we approved it, with the idea it was going to go through that. If for whatever reason, the ball would get dropped in the paperwork, would we just not get that?
What certificate are you referring to?
The proposal letter.
Oh, the proposal letter,
The
okay.
proposal letter, it sounded like there was a lot more paperwork that had to go to you guys. So
There is after
from a
that
county
point.
standpoint, if somebody brings this in and then he gets approved and then just decides it's too much paperwork, then the county has already approved it, thinking that we were going to get money, and then is there a guarantee from the state that we will get, this dollar amount, or is that only if it's followed through?
It's only if the project is followed through on. Yep. So there would be due diligence there and some vetting out of the projects as well.
Okay.
Just like you would on any other project.
So from a county point of view, once it's already approved, unless you'd make that as a condition of the permit, we might not see anything from that.
Potentially, that could fall in. I haven't seen it personally at any level. I don't know if Joe has,
I
but.
think the GOD officers that are in charge of seeing that the projects are done are going to be very encouraging to the applicant.
Yeah, and we will stay in contact with you.
Correct.
And so if there's a hitch for some reason, and the local economic development office.
Okay.
So it's not like we're gonna keep you in the dark. We're all partners. And if something.
Well, we got $11,000 coming from that, so.
Right, I know the project. And so we'll be in touch and be assured that we want to stay in contact.
You let us know about that.
Yeah, but as far as, and then also work on your end, there'd be no work on the county's end to do any of this. We would be coordinating everything with the developer as far as the application and that process goes, so.
So should we make that as a condition when we approve it, that you have to follow through with your paperwork? I mean, that would almost seem like that would be a good idea to protect the county.
It could be a way to mitigate some of that risk for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think that would affect anything down the road for you as well.
That wouldn't affect anything with you
Wouldn't
guys?
affect us.
No.
That would be a local decision. You would
Okay,
make.
all right, thanks.
So it would put yourself in a better position at
Yeah.
risk.
Well, just, make sure if somebody comes in and says that this is what it's gonna be, just simple
And what
follow
we
through.
want to do is not spend the money until we get it.
Yeah, we got
True.
bridges to fix, Don.
True. And then if you kind of keep flipping over, I have our business development map here, just to give you an idea as far as the regions that our reps cover. So Melissa Andreessen is actually in your territory down there. It's going to be shaded in orange. So she has those counties that she's continually working on a daily basis. So she's reaching out to the local economic development group here, YAPG, and then a lot of other local ones within those counties. So I just can't, again, stress it enough. Anytime you guys get wind of one of these projects going on, is get in touch with Melissa. Again, her contact information will be on here. If you can't get a hold of her, you can use me as a backup as well, and I can start that process. And at most, Joe Fiala would also be available too to take questions if needed. But I would say direct those directly to Melissa or myself. And then the contacts, emails, phone numbers for all our business development reps are on the following page. Just have one correction here as of recent. The business development director, John Austin, has gone into the private sector here recently. So he's no longer with our agency. Joe Fiala has taken over as the interim business development director, so he's overseeing the community development and the business development side as well. So that'd be the one correction on there. And I'm sure Joe might have some business cards with him. I'm sure. We can pass out some business cards here before we take off, but just so you have his contact information as well. So again, we kind of reiterated it a little bit before. As far as local control goes, this is still all up to the county. There's going to be no rules, no regulations, no statutory things changed with this. So everything's going to stay at the local level. We're just utilizing these existing programs to hopefully get some ag projects off the ground. And if it's a fit for your county and you can use this program and get a little bit of incentive, great. If you feel the project is not a fit for the county, that's what you need to deem necessary at that point in time. So you still need to make the choices at the local level. So again, the regulations, nothing's changed there. As far as roles and responsibilities, again, we've kind of hit on this already as well. The developer is going to be responsible for filling out that initial application with the GOED. And again, you guys as the county are not going to have any extra work with that. Our business development reps will see that project through to the finish line. And they'll be in contact with that developer as well on an ongoing basis. And they'll be in touch with you guys and then also YAPG as well. So just in summary and in closing, again, Governor Noem has made ag a top priority. You're currently using these programs to help generate some growth and enhancement in the ag industry. And also, the administration is also looking for new ways as well, whether that potentially might be through the legislature or through other existing programs that we might have. And one thing I didn't mention earlier as well is our ag development team came over from the agriculture side, and they were pushed over into GOED. And along with that, there was a lot of programs that came over from the ag side. And so we have a good opportunity there to couple some of these projects with current GOED programs as well. So there might be a fit there for these projects to entail multiple programs within our agency. And then just in the back of there, there's some generally asked questions that we have on there. I would just say if you guys do have questions, you can reach out to me by email, phone, and we can go over everything in detail with you at that point. But with that, I'd open it up to any questions that you guys as a commission might have for us.
Any questions from any of the board members? Go ahead, Gary.
Everybody finished? I just have a comment to make, and I don't think you were aware of what you said. When you first started speaking, you said boots on the ground. I was a supporter of Kristi Noem, Chantel Krebs. Marco Rubio was a guy that was use that comment all the time.
Okay.
I write several articles, several in the Argus Leader. One is called Boots on the Ground. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I'm from a Gold Star family. After you said that comment, a few minutes later, there was a Gold Star family that walked out. I don't know what for reason. Maybe they just left. I just wanted to bring your attention that that's pretty sensitive. There's 1,800 veterans in Yankton County, and I don't really think it's just a phrase that gets thrown around, kicked around by a lot of non-veterans. Like I said, I was a big supporter, and I'm not holding anything against it. I'm just asking you, if you want to read that, you can Google me, all those articles, and you can read that article, Boots on the Ground.
Yep.
So, like I said.
No, I will. I apologize for that. It was just in talk. Nothing malign there at all.
Don, got anything? Sherry, Joe? Go ahead.
Is there going to be a limit?
As far as dollar?
As far as...
So as long as there's the one requirement, there's two requirements, as long as there's a need for a new conditional use permit, so it does have to be a new permit being issued. And there's no dollar value tied to it, but as Dan stated earlier, some counties have different thresholds as far as livestock numbers. So some might not qualify depending on those within your own zoning ordinances.
I guess I was thinking the whole program. Is there, when we get to this dollar value, that's all the sales tax we're going to get back? Have we discussed where the program ends?
Yeah, if we can continue to push out projects and incentivize these projects, we will. At no limit.
And it really doesn't make any difference how big or small the farmer is.
Correct.
If he wants to enter into one of these livestock facilities, it would apply to him.
Correct, yep.
Is there anything in the construction that's not included?
As far as taxable goes?
Yeah, say, okay, it's the building, say we put, I don't know, we require, a mortality pit. Would the construction of that be included in this?
As long as it's part of that permit.
So just whatever is part of that?
Yep.
Okay.
So if something was permitted, this went through the project and it went through the process, was complete, you received the dollars, and then they went back and added that pit later.
Then it would.
There was probably no permitting for that, so that would not qualify.
But in the initial one?
It would.
It would.
Yep.
Okay, so anything that's required, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, so an example like a dairy, if there was like digesters, that sort of thing, part of the initial dairy, that would all qualify.
Okay, so like biofilters and things like that, groundwater monitoring systems?
Yep, all part of that initial project, yep.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the commission? Does anybody from the audience have a quick question?
Any
aquaculture projects yet?
We haven't yet. I guess, we've had, of course, True Shrimp that's in Madison, but one reason why that wouldn't qualify, because it's actually within city limits up there, so the projects do have to be outside of city limits to qualify as well. But we haven't had any interest, I don't think. I haven't seen any apps yet for aquaculture.
No, we may have one in the future. We are working with another aquaculture company. They're looking at the whole country, and so we're competing with 50 states. We hope they land in South Dakota, but we'll see. And that one isn't shrimp, that would be fish.
Carp.
We're a long ways from any kind of decision on that one.
Well, if there's no other questions, thank you guys very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys need a break or keep on going? Keep on going, all right. Next item on the agenda, item number 15, discussion on waiving ambulance fees. Mr. Pat Beeman and Kellen Mosier. Welcome.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. And thank you for having us. My name is Pat Beeman. I am the elementary principal and head football coach with the Gayville Vollen School District. And first of all, this is my first commission meeting that I've attended, so thank you for the service that you provide. And I'd in particular like to thank one of your employees, Steve, with EMS. Fantastic guy to work with. So he's been very, very, very good to us. So
I'll give us $20.
yeah. My relationship with Steve started in 2017 simply because we were at a road game and had to use an ambulance service, and prior to that, Gayville Vollen did not have one. And I was never more thankful than the night that one of our young boys had to take a ride that it wasn't a 20 to 25 minute delay. A school our size, we're requesting a waiver at least this fall, just to we didn't prepare for any of this, so we're just asking for a waiver from the ambulance fee this fall. Thinking about it, I don't know, with the school system the way it is, using an ambulance service, I know a lot of our school is funded through tax dollars, and so I don't know if it's the taxpayers of our school district, which primarily live in Yankton County, turning around and paying Yankton County for the use of their ambulance. I know it's probably different peas in a pod, but just something to think about, because someone's going to foot the bill, and obviously it's the taxpayers of Yankton County one way or another. And again, I appreciate all the support that Steve and the staff and you guys have given us, and just hope that moving forward we can work together and come up with a solution. So Kellen Mosier is our athletic director. He's here to visit with you a little bit, and then we'll be done.
Hi guys, thanks for having us. Like Pat said, I know Yankton was here a couple weeks ago to voice their concerns, so I don't mean to come here and be redundant and voice those over again. I think we all probably care about our student athletes and their health and safety, but the proposal itself, I guess I see three issues with, or a threefold issue with the proposal. I emailed out to several area Class B schools, their athletic directors, to inquire about whether or not they paid for ambulance services, and I would say well over 80% of them said that they did not. Others had various responses, $25 an hour, $50 a game. I think the highest I found was $125 a game. So when we're talking about $100 an hour, I think we probably need to rethink that. The other issue I see is with $100 an hour, there being a cap there. There's other things that happen within a football game. We could have lightning delays, we could have overtime, and now the bill goes from maybe $200 a night to $400 a night. So another issue that we maybe want to think about there. And I know that we've also talked about, if something were to happen while Steve and his crew were there, that they would maybe have to take that call and be gone gone anyway. So now we're paying for a service that we can't even use at that point if they're not there and they have to take another call. So, and the last thing, I guess, and Pat kind of touched on it, was our school budget was set last spring. So in August, to ask us, especially at a Class B small school, to find another, $600 to $1,000 is a bit of a stretch at this point. So, like Pat said, we're very thankful for Steve and his crew being there, and thank you for your time tonight. So,
I think I'll reiterate kind of some of the similar things we talked with the Yankton School District about. Is our ambulance service is great, but something we're finding out is our costs keep going up and up and up, and we're approaching the point where we're having difficulty paying for the ambulance service. So this isn't an attempt to financially gain, but simply have our costs covered. Because if we can't cover our costs for the ambulance and we keep losing money, we might not have an ambulance in 10 years from now. So that's where this is coming from, trying to just really break even with that service.
Yeah, and I fully understand that. And I think, again, it was a conversation that would have been helpful maybe last April or March or May, but in August our hands are a little bit tied with some of that stuff. So.
Steve, does Gayville Vollen and Yankton, I'm sure they have games on the same nights usually, correct? Or are they different nights, or I suppose you have an
I don't have the schedule in front of me. This last Friday night we did, but that's kind of unusual, isn't it, to have two?
Usually one of us, well, a lot of times, frequently one of us is on the road. Sometimes we're both at home, but sometimes.
Yeah. Well, like this Friday, you probably had a Yankton game, you had a Gayville game, and we had the air show going on. And that's stretching your guys and your crew pretty
but we made
darn
it. We got everything covered, and we was sitting there all.
That's a testament
stepped up and made it happen.
to your crew,
but I couldn't,
though,
without having the schedules in front of me, I can't tell you what the two are.
You want to get some public comment? Public comment first, or do you got questions for these guys?
You two gentlemen weren't here last time.
No, these guys are from Gayville.
No, you weren't.
No, we were not.
Well, I have to give my little spiel about my brother-in-law, Judge Donald E. Erickson, Circuit Court Judge here in Yankton. Big football fan, broke his back for the Tanningers. Don, my dad, and I watched the very first Super Bowl, January 17th, 1967, on black and white TV. So you know what kind of football fans we are.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. The only thing I see is that, we're in a bind with the flood and everything. I see you have a ad that flashes on the TV several times a day about you're giving away a four-wheeler or a side-by-side, $20 a chance or something for the Booster Club?
No, that's
Is there any
not.
way that
That's Yankton. That must be Yankton. That's not us anyway.
Okay, but if
not
there's
Gayville
something,
Vollen School.
I'm just saying that if there's something like that could be, that you could raise money.
Get creative and try to raise money. Yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah, just a suggestion. That
Yep, it's certainly a thing we do try to. Especially with the size of school we have, we try not to, and this isn't just in relation to the ambulance, but fundraise a lot, because our parents get hit a lot by, when you have, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of student athletes. They get it all the time. But we do fundraise for some, and that's certainly something we can look into.
Yeah, don't pick on the parents. Go down to all these rich bankers up and down the street here.
I don't know that many of them are big Gayville Vollen football fans, but maybe some of them
They should be, right?
Yeah.
Anybody, I'm going to open it to public comment. Anybody from the audience care to speak on this topic? Now would be the time. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close public comment to the board. We got any other questions, discussion?
Just two things.
Yep.
When you look at Yankton County, we tend to think the Yankton School District is the school district. I live 2 miles from the Scotland School District, the Menno School District, Irene School District, and I'm a little further from Tabor. And I think Viborg is also in our county. So when you look at our county, the Yankton School District's here, Gayville Vollen is, well, to you guys, it would be this way. And then the rest of the county is other school districts. So when you get back to that whole conversation I hate to have is the fairness conversation. There is an argument for the county charging for ambulance fees at these two schools that we provide. Dan has stated our ambulance runs in the negative right now, and there's a pretty tough conversation that is brewing in the background about the future of the ambulance. And I'm part of that because I'm the liaison with the ambulance team, and we're working through that at ways we can make that situation better. The other thing I will say is I taught in the school for 3 years here in Yankton, and I do know school budgets are very tight, and they do budget about like we do. Summertime you budget, and then you live the next year through and hoping you had a good budget. I have no problem with waiving the fees for this fall, but I do feel that next fall we need to start discussing fees. Now, whether $100 an hour, you brought up very good points about the lightning delay and all of that. So I do think we need to revisit that. But this fall, I would support waiving the fees for both Yankton and Gayville with the understanding that next fall it needs to be budgeted for.
Anyone else got
That's similar to
discussion?
my sentiment. I was gonna say either waive or split costs or come up with something, but again, with the understanding that budget for it, in following years, and it goes back to, all the school districts and children we have that go to different school districts. And now that this has been brought to light, is Irene gonna call and ask for an ambulance? Is the soccer association gonna want an ambulance there? So I think fair's fair, and we come up with a fair price in the future.
Any other, got something down?
You drive the ambulance out of the barn, it costs how much?
$700 on us today.
Yeah, I think but that's, those figures are the bricks and mortar and electric, all of that, all that, yes.
Variable costs.
Right. Yeah, all into that cost, right.
So the only point I'm gonna bring up, because I agree with Joe and Sherry that we should put it off for a year. But even if you put it off for a year at those rates, we're still subsidizing the ambulance. The county is still paying for probably half of the ambulance. Because you go to a football game for 3 hours and bill them $100 an hour, is that it?
Right.
It's $300, you're charging yourself $700 going out. So it's still kind of a 50-50 deal.
Okay, yep.
In my way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I think you kind of
I
talk.
think that's a fair.
Yeah. We're definitely not making money at $100 an hour. We're probably still really losing.
Right, the
funds,
county is
so-
still gonna, I think that regardless of how we split the pie, the county's still gonna have some,
Yeah.
gonna be subsidizing the department, in some way.
I think we discussed that kind of covers your direct costs, essentially, employees, and because they do, when an ambulance goes to like your game or Yankton's game, it doesn't just leave the building vacant. Then we have two crews on hand, and so when one goes to the game, there's a third crew on that night. So I mean, we do incur direct costs and whatnot.
Did we have overtime or anything this weekend when we had we had air show and then 2 football games? Where were we at on that?
Yeah, there was a couple that were on overtime.
So I mean, that's the situation we're in, just for example, so you know where we're coming from is we didn't make any money this week. And it's a valuable service, and I think our ambulance crew does an amazing job. We want to keep this amazing ambulance we have in the county, but we have to be able to afford it. So is that a motion to, somebody want to make a motion to waive the fees for?
I'd make that motion.
Okay. Motion to waive the fees for, is it for both Gayville and Yankton School District for this year only? Is that your motion, Don?
Yes,
Okay.
and the next year, put them in the back.
And with the understanding, next year, those are the fees. So, motion, is there a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Kettering,
Yes.
Los,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Swenson,
No.
Clement.
Yes, motion pass. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. We want to take a break for a few minutes or not? Keep on going? Anybody need a break?
Keep on trucking.
What do we have? All right, next item on the agenda, item number 16, public hearing on possible first reading of zoning ordinance amendment. Mr. McGinnis, you want to take this one?
Well, the best I can do is probably give an overview of the process since I wasn't part of any of this. But I did raise a concern at the Planning Commission, I believe it was, regarding this first paragraph asking for all these official copies all over the courthouse. But you can't have that many official copies because if one is altered and someone sees that, then they'll run and say, that's my official copy. So they'll go off and do something. I think there needs to be one official copy, and then you can have copies of that. I mean, and if you would rewrite that second sentence and just read scratch official and say a copy of the official zoning ordinance shall be kept, but not an official copy. Because that way, otherwise you have too many official copies and someone scratches a couple terms out of there, next person reads it, well, that's the official zoning ordinance. I can do whatever, this is what I can do now. So that would be my one comment I would have about that. But really, as far as that, I mean, basically your job today, if you so choose, would be to take public comment, open it up for a public hearing, take public comment, close that as you normally do, and then if you feel comfortable, make a motion to hold first reading of the ordinance. And if that, you take votes and they agree to open the first reading, and then at that point you would hold that and then set, so your second reading of the ordinance at a time no less than 5 days from now, and you'd hold second reading. But really, if you want comments or anything else, you really should get those, any changes or revisions done tonight and try not to carry them over. You can, but it gets a little more complicated.
So
And no more comments after this point. Otherwise, it lends itself to a hearing, and then you're gonna have to have notice, and you're basically starting all over again if you take any more comments after this first hearing and first reading. One county, I think it cost them $60,000 because someone took a comment and they wrote hearing in the minutes. Nope, without public notice.
So for this first paragraph, what would you recommend that?
I would say in the second sentence, after the colon, just scratch official after it, so it should read a copy of the official zoning ordinance shall be kept and maintained in the following offices.
Okay.
And we can determine where you want the official copy, but normally that's with the zoning administrator or someone.
Do we have to designate an official copy? I mean, because our zoning ordinance doesn't have a spot for an official copy.
Well, I would record it at the register of deeds off personally.
Okay.
So no one can touch it without going through a process. I mean, the zoning administrator, what generally I do, and I keep an official copy for all my counties right now, is they call and they have an issue, well, I'll mark it up for the next time they want to do things. But it's a working copy.
Sure.
It's the correct official copy, but it's also a working copy. I see that happening more at the zoning administrator's office and potentially others if they have questions or such, but mainly the zoning administrator is going to mark it up.
Do we, and I agree, I think it needs to be in the Register of Deeds office, the official copy. Do we need to have in this paragraph how quickly this document has to be updated? Because I know it's and I can't remember if it's Article 4 or not, but there's a very generic term about updating the official zoning map, and it said, it doesn't give 15 days, 30 days, whatever, it just says it's not as quickly as possible, or
In a
it's-
timely manner.
in a timely manner, and in a timely manner is different from me to Joe Blow and everybody.
The new law doesn't have a time frame either. The South Dakota law does not.
Yep, because we ran into the whole deal last time where everybody's got good intentions about getting stuff updated and stuff comes up. So I think personally we need to hold ourselves to no longer than 30 days, for example, or quarterly or something. But if you make a change and the state law says your online version's got to be updated, that means your official copy needs to be updated. So I think it would be wise to have a time frame.
So just say, upon amendment, it shall be updated within,
30 days or 45 days, or I think 15 days is a little quick.
Yeah.
Although in the electronic world,
Should be ready to go.
it should be pretty good.
We kind of have that discussion too on what, being the online ordinance has to be updated. Okay, so after our final reading on this, it goes 20 days. If it doesn't get petitioned, that 21st day, it's live.
Yep.
Are
Well, we
gonna
could put
have
something
the
that,
online
an
version?
effective date on, that this ordinance takes effect X time. Could we do something like that?
But that doesn't, that's not in your living document
Yeah.
that says you have to
Okay.
update the living
We
document.
could say, how about 30 days after the ordinance is in effect, or it needs to be updated? I don't know, I guess. I'm
know, I
fine
think-
with 30 days is reasonable, I think.
You know, and that would be 10 days after the official 20-day period to petition.
upon its effective date. 30 days after the effective date. Is that what we're looking at?
I think that's good.
Or do you want
And-
sooner?
What
10
you're saying is 10
yeah.
after the effective.
That's fine by me.
The effective date will be after the 20-day petition period. So if you give it 10 days after that, you've got 30 days to have a document ready, and you just click or print,
Right.
and you're good.
You just don't want to put it on sooner than that 20,
Right.
so,
Exactly.
and mess things up. So 10 days after the effective date, and write some language to that effect in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Simple enough.
And then down below, on Articles 6, 7, and 8, they all read very similar, but there's one difference. 605 leaves the one in parentheses, and the other two takes that out.
Oh, it's not lined through, was what you mean, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so that
Struck
needs to be
through.
lined through. All right. Got it.
So permitted accessory uses, you can have a 4,000 square foot accessory building. Can I have two? Or does the summation of them have to be less than 4,000? And maybe I'm just getting too nitpicky, but after all the lawsuits we seem to find for
Now's our
ourselves.
time to-
Now's the time, if you're gonna change it, to make sure the wording is your intent.
Well, and that's the thing, you don't want to get too detailed in the actual, you define an accessory building as you read a zoning ordinance, you look at your zoning ordinance, you have bullets, boom, boom, boom. So I personally don't like verbose comments in zoning ordinances. So
Okay.
you want an accessory building, so you want a small, large, medium, what accessory building, you kick it back and you look up the definition, well, that equals or if you just want to put the sizes in right here, that's fine. But you're right, you need to define in your accessory building, that constitutes all the buildings, detached buildings upon the property.
You know, I didn't know if it should be a maximum size for the building is 4,000 or something. And again, maybe I'm just getting too nitpicky.
No, that's because we run into that all the time, explaining to people that you have to add all these together, and then that's what accessory building size is.
Right.
So we'll clarify total size. And that's how it reads, the cumulative size, excuse me, of those accessory buildings.
Right, okay.
Are you,
So in Article 7, moderate density rural residential district R2, a 2,400 square foot accessory structure, does that mean I can't do a 2,100 square foot?
No, a 2,400 would be you could have a 2,100 and a 300-foot utility shed, square foot utility shed. You can have up to 2,400 feet of accessory buildings. And it's all how you write it. And
it's really not, there wasn't a lot of rewriting to what was already there. It was just scratching out and changing numbers. So I hate to rewrite the whole thing, and we really haven't had a problem with, is that one or two? What we have had a problem with is people wanting bigger size buildings, and it's created hundreds of variances and probably tens of thousands of hours of work and many, many meetings to go through. So I don't think the verbiage is wrong and it needs to be changes, but I do think the actual size, because that's the issue, is the size. So everything else really hasn't been a problem as far as I can see, but.
Then I'm gonna be devil's advocate. If I were living in a modern density or, I wouldn't want somebody to come in and put up 6 200 square foot buildings to get 1,200 square feet.
Like?
I mean, you could go to the old farrow in the pasture concept and put.
I mean, has that been a problem, though? I mean, could somebody right now?
I'm just trying to avoid it.
Yeah, well, right now, couldn't somebody put in, 12 100 square foot one? I mean, we're not seeing that. I mean, we're not seeing that
Now's the
happen.
opportunity to clean these things up.
Yeah, I guess.
I would say a building not to exceed 2,400 square feet.
But some people have multiple buildings. I mean, they might have a yard shed and they might have a detached 1-car or 2-car garage, depending on the size. I mean, that's generally what you see. Have I seen people with 3 or 4? I mean, you're in your R1 district, yeah, there's a hay shed, there's a garage, whatever Don has. I haven't been up there for a long time to see Dick and drove down that road, so I haven't gone down there. But they've got a smattering of, not farrowing sheds, but. So when we do it, we want to do it. Well, I guess that I understand what you're saying, Dan, Don, both of you. Sherry, if you do this, you want to do it right.
Could we just have one, just like cross out A and just have one 4,000 square foot accessory built? Would that satisfy everybody? Like uncross out the one part? Or what are you looking for?
I've just got the fun of writing an ordinance. This is it. But no, you can't write 1 because they're going to want 2. And then there's no provision to change this, to allow for 2, unless we write allowed for 2. So you have to put in the definition that says accessory buildings allow 2. Well, we don't have to get into covering maximum lot coverage because we don't want to play that game of saying how much of your lot you can cover in buildings. So I understand where everything's going, but we're just unique down here in this southeast corner of the state, and we want to make sure we hit all the coverage.
I guess based off what I'm hearing, maybe we need to put something not to exceed X amount of buildings or not to exceed a total square footage of, I don't know. That gets kind of.
Well, I like the sizes that
Yeah.
selected. I mean, that's meets most everybody's.
We did research on the building size, and this will encompass around, was it 90 or so % of the buildings that we had traditionally done variances? Not all of them, but the vast majority of them, I think this will encompass. And it's important to realize that still people are having to put the building within the lot lines. That one we did out by James River a month ago, this would have fallen in that where he would have never had to come in. The guy with the 4-acre lot in R3, he wouldn't have had to come in here, and some of these other ones wouldn't have to come in here, so. So what, as a board, do we want to put, you know, on there? Do we want to add something? I guess I understand where people are coming from. I guess I haven't seen it as an issue where people are building multiple buildings, but I understand what you're saying. Does somebody have a good solution we could add to this?
About accessory structures of no more than 2,400 square feet in size and 14 feet in height. Sidewall height.
An accessory structure or accessory structures?
Accessory structures of no more than 2,400 square feet in size and 1,400 feet in sidewall height, or something like that.
Accessory structures of no more than...
Well, I'm doing Article 7.
Oh, okay, of...
No more than 2,400 square feet and 1,400 feet in sidewall or at side.
Sidewall
whatever.
height shall not exceed. Does that make sense to everybody then? Is that
Yeah.
I
acceptable?
mean, this is off the
Yep.
cuff here. I would like to do it off a desk, but
So, is that acceptable to everybody? Okay, so so Article 6 would read accessory structure of no more than a 4,000 square foot accessory, I'm sorry, no more than 4,000 square feet, and then we'd scratch out accessory building, is that correct?
just accessory structures of no more than 4,000 square feet with a sidewall height of less than 1,600 square feet.
16.
Sidewall height not to
16
exceed
feet.
16 for Article 6.
That's measured, okay, I got it. All right. How about,
I'll put some lipstick on it and we'll re-parade it in front of you. How about that?
are there any other changes, anybody? We did a definition change to the accessory structure definition of the building as well, accessory building. We did leave it as less
Well, we
than,
should probably have our lawyer review it and put his stamp of approval, because the lawyers are the ones that will pick it apart.
On page 2, though, that definition, we need to break that down into like 3 definitions, I believe. The bottom of page 2.
well, that's the definition that's in the book right now. We're just actually deleted a few things out of it. That's what's currently in our,
But does it carry that it shall be unlawful? Is that in the definition of accessory building?
Yeah, I think so.
That's PB, post Brian. I did not write that.
yeah, if you,
It's a long one.
page 1 of our, that's exactly what it says, and really, we're actually making the definition smaller, you know, is less than 100% of the area of the largest floor principal building is unattached from, and we have is not attached to, at least 10 feet, so we're actually making that, you know. I guess the planning commission was kind of trying to avoid large radical changes to some of these things.
Well, normally I would have that in supplemental regulations.
Yeah, well, that's where it is now, and I think we need a definition for accessory building.
You're just talking about the shipping containers.
Yeah, I mean, and that would apply to all
Portion of it.
districts and put it out there as a rule that you don't want them anywhere in in zoning, anywhere in the county for that type of use.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in ag.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's fine, but that's ag use, and we usually exempt that. So the same reason we exempt trailer homes in an ag district. We exempt lots of things for things like that, but this is for,
R1, 2, and 3.
Everything but egg.
Well, everything but egg.
yeah, that's fine. So it's public comment.
So,
I just wanted, on that, where it says it's 14 feet measured from the highest point, it's probably a 412 pitch. What if somebody wants like a A-frame type, then can they get a variance for that then?
be a condition.
could.
Yeah.
But that'd kind of be defeating the purpose of a storage
It's-
building.
They're not talking about the peak of the roof, they're talking the highest point of the finished floor at grade.
Yeah, oh,
Basically
that's the way I read
sidewalk.
it, that it was the highest
Yeah.
point.
To the highest point of the wall.
Measured from the highest point of the finished floors.
Yeah, and one of the things we really run out, especially in the lake area and the residential, is when they get above a certain height down about, it encroaches people's view.
Yeah, nobody can see around it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yeah, do we want to get some public comment on this?
Yeah, you need to.
All right, open up the floor. Anyone care to make a public comment on this proposed change? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion, bring it back to the board. What does the board feel? Do we want to work on this a little bit more and move it forward? Do we want to have a first reading tonight? What would the board want to do?
I think it sounds like we gotta clean up a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, the changes we talked about need to be incorporated. I guess I'm good with that last paragraph for now. Later on, we can choose to separate that.
Split that off.
That second part out.
If it's already in here, I guess it's in here for a reason. I don't know how much we want to do. I guess we could look into that, I suppose. If we want to bring this at the next meeting, Joe, do you want to take point on getting these changes and email them to Rob and have him look it over, and we'll do a potential first reading at the next meeting? Could you do that?
I will if Brian took good notes.
He always takes good notes. Yeah, is the board okay with that? We'll clean it up and and submit it for a possible first reading at the next meeting.
Right.
Sound like a plan?
Yes.
All right. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 18, no through trucks resolution to increase fines to $2,500. All right, Rob, did you just want us to sign this resolution? Or
Yeah,
what did you-
and that would be, it's the same one
Okay.
that you guys adopted, I believe it was back in June.
Okay.
What I had done was I adopted the resolution for the no-through truck and then the fine specifically for that area.
Okay.
And I know part of what you had done was you also increased the fine on no-through trucks. What I originally was going to do, I was just going to amend, and I believe it's 19-1, the resolution.
Okay.
And there, I believe it was adopted in, I think it might have been February, could have been January, when the original one, but I did note that there was other no-through truck designations. So I just added an extra paragraph in there, Dan, and then just designated kind of what we did, where it shows we've increased any no-through truck designated routes in Yankton County went from the 500 to the 2,500. So I kind of, it's your same thing. In my opinion, it's done. It just
Okay.
needs to be done and signed and maybe noted the date and time and who made the motion and seconded, but it would be what the note and the second, what had occurred at that time.
Okay, and I know this, we talked about it and approved it at this board, but now we have that resolution to make it effective. I believe Mike's already ordered the signs, has he not? And we'd like to get this done before we put up the signs. Are there any questions from anyone on the board? Anyone from the audience care to speak on this topic? Now, come on up, sir, state your name. I'll give you 3 minutes. Welcome.
Zane Williams from Irene, South Dakota. I just would, you guys have probably already said it, what is the definition of a through truck? pretty broad spectrum, but I just need to know that.
And then it does say it, you can almost just read the definition.
Where's that on here?
Are you finding it, Dan? I could come over and grab it too. Sorry.
I defer to Ron.
I can grab it.
I don't know where it is on here.
Okay.
A truck with 2 or more axles.
Yeah. What it has to do with is no person may operate on the designated points where it has no origin or destination along the route traveled. That's the definition. So if you define this definition and it's no through truck, so if I'm starting there or I'm ending there, then it's a no through truck. So you can drive, by the definition, it's the 2-axle. The 2 or more axles, you can drive 2 or more axles, but then as long as you're starting there or you're ending within that area. But if you're driving through, then it's a through truck. That make sense? So if I'm dropping off in there, I'm good.
Right.
Or if that's where I'm starting.
Right, okay.
So
Because I mean,
say I have a house where my business is within that definition,
Okay.
and I'm just taking off and I'm leaving it, then I'm okay. But if I'm driving through it and I'm gonna drop off or pick up at a different location, then that's a no-through truck, designated area.
All right, thank you.
And they have to be posted too, correct?
You're right, and it's.
And they'll have to be posted.
Well, and like most of the county roads are, they're all no through trucks. So, okay, thank you.
Anyone else care to speak on this? Now would be the time to do so, for or against. Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment. I know, Joe, when you and I were out in Mission Hill, there was a lot of concern, especially in the Mayfield area, about no-through trucks causing a significant amount of damage. I think they wrecked a bridge up there, and so this is kind of, in response to some of that. So, anyone else have any comments on this?
So we essentially we voted on this once before.
Yeah.
And now we're going to re-vote on it?
This is the resolution to put that into effect, so that Mike can post it. So this is the resolution, and I think you and I actually voted against it last time.
We did.
But this is to approve the resolution. So any other comments from anybody?
And this will be $2,500 on every no-through.
Yes, 2,500 on every no-through trucks, so.
It was kind of ironic because the next day after we voted, I went to Irene, and here came hog trucks from down 46, turned onto Welshtown, and I know where they were headed, and they were from Iowa. All had Iowa plates, so they're taking the shortcut.
Yep. So, all right, I'd entertain a motion on the no-through trucks resolution.
Move approval of the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Healy,
Yes.
Kettering.
Yes.
Swenson,
Yes.
Loest,
No.
Commsion.
Yes, motion pass. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 19, Road Task Force update. Commissioners Loest and Kettering.
Want me to go?
Sure.
Sure.
You're doing great. I'm really impressed with the input that we've gotten from everybody on the task force. They're doing a great job.
Yep, our last meeting we had, so essentially in August, we met in Mayfield, we met in Lesterville, and then we came back to the commission chambers. We had our map up there, we assigned A, B, and C roads, had a great discussion, decided we needed to go to Gayville next. So next Monday, we will be at the Gayville Community Hall at 7 p.m. to ask for more input. We're going to show what we have to date, to have people poke holes in it again, and sometimes you never know who's going to bring up something you never thought of. So the minutes, I think I sent out to the team and kind of tried to summarize what we're doing, taking every road, talking about the positives, the negatives, the current condition, the bridge's current condition, and just trying to essentially argue one way or the other whether A, B, and C is the right label. So, Don, you can add anything to that?
That'd be pretty accurate.
Heard a lot of good comments on that, so keep up the good work and make sure you reiterate our appreciation to the people who volunteered their time to do that, so it's great. All right, anything else on?
Dan, this lady brought up a good question at the open mic. And Rob's now here. I'd like Rob to address that. Maybe it should be done at the next meeting, but I don't.
Do you want to do that at commissioner updates, or when do you want to do that now, or it's not on the agenda?
I'd like to answer her question because you know, it could apply more GOED or YABG. It could be Boy Scouts. It could be Senior Citizen Center. It could be all kinds of things that we're all involved in.
Us as a board, do we want to discuss that tonight, or do we want to put it on the next meeting? What do we want to do? Next meeting, you want to do that? Okay, we'll put it on.
But I wanted to
Thank you.
get your
Okay. All right. Anything else on the road task force?
No.
All right, next item on the agenda, public comment, item number 20.
You beat me.
Phil Tao, give you 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'll try to make this short. This kind of goes to some discussions earlier tonight about trying to bring the county together and mend some wounds. Lawsuits. I implore this county commission and the Board of Adjustment to take charge of the petitions and lawsuits that have been filed against county actions regarding the CAFOs and Class Fs and some other permits. The actions of last December, there were 4 lawsuits filed in early December and served. As of today, almost 8 months later, not one word from the county legal staff, Mr. Diebert, about this. Over 2 months ago, a letter interrogatory was sent to him demanding answers to questions, giving him 30 days to answer. He answered none of those questions in 30 days, so we gave him another 30 days. He has still not answered those questions. Instead, he passed it off and let our lawyer know that Mike Stevens is going to work on the issue and make sure he gets clear clarification with the applicants that were named on those lawsuits. Which brings up the point that when those lawsuits were filed both previously with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Schenk, the intent was the actions on the petition, only the actions of the county and the county employees were mentioned. Yankton County is the only county of the 66 in the state of South Dakota who has handled it this way and pawned it off on the applicants named. The applicants have to be named, otherwise an action is going to be taken against their property or against their application, and they're not notified. So it's a simple notification. The anger that is caused on their part, I completely understand. But that anger was caused by the county commission and the legal staff. Whoever made that decision, I don't know. I don't claim to know. And I'm not going to point fingers, except that happened before, and it's still happening. And you need to get briefed on what's happening and take charge of those petitions and find out what the answers are. Because our intent is to get answers from the county commission and the Board of Adjustment, what took place and what is taking place. Not to cause undue hardship or financial obligations on the applicant's part, when quite frankly, they did nothing wrong. They did exactly what the county, Mr. Garrity, or anybody else told them they had to do. We just disagreed with that application of the ordinance. And in accordance with the ordinance, the only way to appeal that is to file a petition or a lawsuit with the county, the circuit court, as per the ordinance. We followed that. So please, get with Mr. Diebert. I don't know where he works in this whole staff problem. You have insurance to pay for it. I don't know. but it's been divisive in this county for way too long, probably mostly and partly because of that, and that it personally affected my property and what's going on now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 21, Commissioner updates. Gary, do you have anything?
No.
Don, anything? Welcome back. So, yeah, Joe and Sherry, anything for commission updates?
Yeah, just regarding our seminar in Pier. I don't know if everyone got the email that there's going to be silent auction. And I was just going to touch base if how we've handled that in the past. They're looking for a donation of something.
We've just always bought something. Last year I bought some books and as a group, and people bid on them.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just whatever.
I thought you were going to talk about the Mardi Gras theme.
Also
it is Mardi Gras theme, so
contest, I
so
believe,
yes, so.
I don't think I'll win anything.
How many beads?
Did you have anything, Sherry?
Well, we've got a staff meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we've got strategic planning
Yep.
on Friday.
Strategic planning on Friday at 9:30. Everybody, we're going to go over
9:30.
part 2 of the street, right here. And then
And then next, is it Tuesday or 8 county meeting?
The 12th.
the 12th.
Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
I won't,
And everybody going to be going.
I won't be
That's
there.
at Jodine, yeah.
I won't be there.
But at Jodine's.
Okay.
The, when?
The September 12th.
No.
At Jodine's.
Tomorrow Sherry and I are going to meet with the department heads and go over the HR proposal and answer any questions that they have. And then on Thursday at 3:45, the Chamber of Commerce leadership team is going to be here. I'm going to take them and introduce them to the building. Were you going to make it to that one, Sherry? Okay. Does any of the other commissioners want to be here for Thursday at 3:45 for the Chamber of Commerce leadership team? You're more than welcome to. And I'm just going to take them. Yeah, no more. Okay, if nobody.
I'll check before I come.
Yeah, let me know,
make it,
but no more to, and we're going to just take them through the building. So that's all I have.
Department head meeting, are we going to cover overview of the new position?
We can, if you'd like.
I would.
Yep.
If you, would you be available to, you've kind of taken that, would you want to take that? I could step out or something, or leave and do that, or how do you want to handle that?
I covered it.
Okay.
Okay, appreciate that.
Anything else? All right, entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant
Second.
to South Dakota Code of Ed Law 1-25-2, paragraph 1. All right, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, executive session. Thank you, everybody. All right, entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're back into regular session. I have a motion.
I move to give Commissioner Healy the authority to extend an offer and accept the offer for Development Services Director.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ely,
Yes.
Swenson,
Yes.
Loest,
Yes.
Kettering,
Yes.
Flemish.
Yes, motion passed. What do we have for next, any items for next meeting?
Based off some of the discussions, ordinances and whatnot, and just that we do need to get moving on some of these changes and look at them, I think we should have on the agenda for us to discuss that and give some direction. I think
Some more direction?
Yeah, because we've talked about, we really, from us came the sheds, the storage
From the
sheds.
commission.
From the commission.
Yeah.
I think we should have a discussion on how this all gonna look set some, fairly loose goals and timeframes, but do that and
We could
go
do that
from
at
there.
Friday at the meeting, and then
Yeah.
that might be a good time to do it with our goal, strategic planning, so.
There you go.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.